Get started. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the City Commission Conference meeting this April 16th, one day after IRS Day. Still April 15th, isn't it? Yeah. So today we have a number of items on our conference agenda. And for those of you who are here for the first time, this is essentially an opportunity for the City Commission to engage with staff to talk about various issues. We don't vote on anything in particular, but we do have the opportunity to direct staff on items that are of interest to the community as well as the Commission. At the beginning, we have on the agenda communications to the City Commission, and these communications are from the advisory boards. In this particular case, the first one we have from the Northwest Progresso Flagler Heights Redevelopment Advisory Board, and they have asked us to for a joint meeting, which I think would be appropriate. Mr. City Manager, do you think you could try to connect the Commission and the advisory board on a mutually agreeable date?
Can you repeat one more time, Mayor?
Do you think you could find an appropriate date in which both the Commission and the advisory board can meet? Maybe we could do a workshop before an upcoming Commission meeting?
Certainly. I'll be working with those board chairs and the clerk to arrange a date.
You know, I think we should also consider having a joint meeting with the Charter Review Board. With the election coming up soon, I know that they're going to have recommendations they want to present to us, and I think that we should probably schedule something like that also, so that we can hear exactly what their recommendations are, and maybe even give them some ideas to what we would like them to discuss with the community going forward. Yes,
Mayor, I actually had requested that back in November.
I know.
I've been asking for that a long time, and I think the last word that we got was that Charter Revision would meet with us in May. That was the last thing I remember them telling us.
Okay,
we have been requesting that for like 6 months.
Okay, so let's make that happen then, if we could.
So just real quick, good afternoon, Anthony Fajardo. We had, at the last Charter Review meeting, the board put together a summary package, and so that's being finalized with legal, and then we're going to send it under a cover memo to you, and also talk about when we can have the workshop, which is in May.
Let's just have it. Let's just have it. This is our last meeting for April anyway, so let's just plan to have it in May.
Okay.
Because there are a number of items I want to make sure that the Charter Review Board does consider and does reach out to the community to talk about. For example, you know, this commission a number of years ago decided to go to November elections instead of March. I'd like to know how the community thinks about that. Is it better? Is it worse? Is it something we need to change, or should we keep it in place? We also talked about donation amounts. Should that change? Has that worked out for the community? Things like that were charter changes several years ago. I'd like to know, you know, a little bit, like get an update as to how the community feels about those changes that we made. Just some examples.
Okay.
All right?
Will do.
Let's see. Okay. The second one is the Cemetery System Board. The Cemetery System Board wants to, I don't know whether they want to meet with us or just have the City Commission discuss opportunities for buying more land to establish more cemeteries. Yes, how are you? Good. You're on. Oh, wait, no, push your button. Push the button underneath. Underneath, at the base.
Right. I got it.
Great.
Okay, figured that out. My name is Mike Watson. I'm the District 1 representative on the City of Fort Lauderdale Cemetery Board. City of Fort Lauderdale currently operates 4 cemeteries within the system. Those cemeteries are almost full, so the city needs more cemetery space. The cemetery system has been operating at a profit the last year or so, or few years. So it's a profitable enterprise for the city. We understand that the school board is looking at closing some of the schools that are severely under-enrolled. There are approximately, I believe, 7, maybe 8 schools within the boundaries of the city that are they're identified as under-enrolled. And the cemetery board just wants the commission to be aware that there is a need for new cemeteries. We believe that some of the schools that are within the city boundaries that are on that list that may be closed would be suitable for a new cemetery in Fort Lauderdale, specifically James Rickards Middle School and Northside Elementary. We understand the school board hadn't made any decisions yet. This is all under consideration, but we wanted to make sure you were aware of the need. And I would also say that currently the cemetery fund has about $32 million available. We can't have, part of it is income, part of it is capital. We can't spend the capital portion, but the income portion is about approximately 1/2 of the $32 million. So there are funds available.
We make half of $32 million as income?
No, $32 million is the investment account right
and
now.
what's the return on the $32 million? What's the income?
Well, the income, I don't have all of these numbers in my head. They're not really
I
available.
misunderstood you. That's what I was asking.
The investments generate, as I recall, this is a guess. I really shouldn't say, but maybe
It's okay.
maybe $2 million. But the cemetery is a business, and they charge a fee for burials. They charge a fee for certain items, et cetera. So the part of the income is generated from that revenue as well as the investment revenue.
John?
Ms. Pittman might be able to help me.
Well,
She was on the-
also, John, I want to ask, John, from your experience, that capital fund, do we use the dividends or interest as for maintenance and upkeep at all? Do you recall?
So there's a portion based on interest earnings as opposed to the capital side of it,
Right.
and there's a differentiator in our ordinance about how that money gets spent. One of the things that we talked about when we looked at the cemetery system operation is maybe going back and revisiting the ordinances and the enabling legislation around that. Because we've talked about the need for capital expansion, and I think we need to look at the accumulated dollars in there and figure out how best to do this. You know, one of the things which I'm sure, will come up in further discussions is that less people are getting buried, more people are being cremated as time goes on, so more mausoleums may be the future of the cemetery industry, if you will.
That's kind of in the works. We're working on.
So I guess what I'm asking is what is the budget that the city establishes every year for upkeep and maintenance, and where are we deriving that money from in order to pay for the upkeep and maintenance? That's kind of what I'm looking for. You don't have to answer that now. I'm just saying at some point we would need to know that to know where we should spend our money.
I wouldn't want to guess at
I don't want
those
you to
numbers,
guess at all. I don't want you to guess at all.
And Mayor, I think Laura Reese is probably she's chomping at the bit over there. She's got all kinds of wonderful stuff that I know she wants to share with us. Thanks, Laura.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Commissioners. Laura Reese, Director of Office Management and Budget. So we have 2 funds set up on the city side. One's the Perpetual Care Trust Fund that the Cemetery Board oversees. And then after we departnered with the partner that we had, we created a cemetery and enterprise fund similar to the water and sewer fund, where revenues generated from the sales of lots, a portion goes into the Perpetual Care Trust and a portion goes into the enterprise fund for operating costs. And so the difference between operating and the revenues that come in from the sales and the expenses, any difference in the two can be charged to the Perpetual Care Trust Fund. In the past few years, we've generated plenty of revenue from the sales of merchandise and lots to pay for the operating expenses. In a year where that doesn't occur, expense could go to the advisory board to weigh in on if it's eligible, and then there would be a drawdown from the Perpetual Care Trust Fund.
Have we ever drawn down on the principal?
Yeah, so primarily for the items that Commissioner Herbst was talking about, such as the construction of new mausoleums
Okay,
and
for
major
capital expenses.
Yeah, and major improvements such as the the fencing, they replace fencing. So those items will come to you on your budget amendments.
Okay.
Sale of merchandise?
Yes, so like,
T-shirts and hats.
Right. Is there a
Come
gift
down
shop
with
or
that.
something?
Make our
merch.
cemeteries great again.
Yeah.
yeah.
Hats with hats.
Right,
Yeah,
yeah. So does that answer your question?
Okay.
Okay.
Laura, I have a question.
Okay, yes.
Have we made any progress with regard to pre-need sales? I know that was always an issue where we couldn't go there. Have we made any headway in that?
Carl Williams, I'm looking over at him. He does the operations.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Vice Mayor Carl Williams, Parks and Recreation Director. So this has been an ongoing topic for us for quite some time. As it stands now, there's rules that prohibit us from actually doing pre-need. We've looked at that on multiple occasions, and it doesn't allow us the opportunity to do that. Now, we do pre-arranged, which is just similar but dissimilar in the sense that it allows us to provide a service for them as their time of need.
But not really totally.
It's not pre-need.
Yeah.
Okay.
And there's no way around that. No way for us to maneuver that legally and figure that out. It just seems like a lost opportunity to me.
So part of the challenge is that there's requirements, I believe. Don't quote me on this, but I believe you need a actual funeral home, and there's some certain aspects to it that require you to have the ability to do pre-need.
Can you
and
get
we don't
back
have
to us
that.
with what those requirements
Yeah.
might be, and then we'll have a better way in which to
Actually, I
judge.
might be able to. Stacy, can you come up real quick? She's the subject matter.
Commissioner Beasley Pittman, while she's coming down.
Yes, I wanted to add to the conversation, knowing that we have exceeded the amount of land that's still available for burial, having a conversation that would include the opportunity for a double-depth burial. And that was something I've learned about, and it really gives an opportunity, especially with families who already have family members that are buried in a cemetery. It gives them an opportunity to use that same space.
I think we do. Isn't that allowable anyway? I know I have
It
a
is.
cousin that did that with her
Yes.
husband.
Right, so this is something that would also address that need for additional cemetery space.
You know, when you go to Jerusalem, the Garden of Gethsemane, right? They go down multiple layers.
Exactly.
Centuries.
So, what I was adding,
But
I
we
would
have a
like to
water
add
table
that to
that
the
they don't.
conversation.
We have a water table though that they don't have. That's the problem.
But I don't, with what I know about it, and they can expound on that,
Yeah.
it's already, the space is already there. It's just a sharing of the same crypt, if I'm not
Right.
incorrect. So it wouldn't bother the water table.
Okay.
But that's the conversation I would love for us as a commission to have, because I do believe that would expand the opportunity for additional burial space.
Now in New Orleans, they bury above ground. Bury above ground. So it's not bury, but it's the caskets are above ground because they have a very high water table. Anyway, I'm sorry. Please go ahead.
Stacey
Could you please
Spates.
push the button? Oh, it's on. Okay,
yes,
very
sir.
good.
Hi, Stacey Spates, Program Manager 2, Cemetery for Parks and Recreation. So for capital improvement projects and acquisition of any land that is within our municipal code, Chapter 10, that talks about, and so any accumulated income, because the Perpetual Care Trust Fund has a corpus that we can never touch.
Right.
But from the accumulating earnings income, we can expend from that. We've made drawdowns for capital improvement projects, not so much for maintenance, which the fund is primarily for, because we make enough in operating to cover.
We do. So the Perpetual Care Fund is only for, you say you can't touch it, but you can touch it for capital improvements.
So the Perpetual Care Trust Fund is for maintenance, capital improvement projects, and for acquisition of land.
Okay.
But however, the fund is made up of the corpus, which is the principal that we can never touch, and then we could draw down from the accumulated income. From each sale of a plot, we set aside 19% that is deposited into the Perpetual Care Trust Fund. And for merchandise, which is the granite base of a marker, a headstone, a monument, we set aside 20 cents per square inch into the Perpetual Care Trust Fund.
Okay.
I'm sorry, now, could you repeat that part again about the part that goes into the corpus?
Yes. So so the deposit is made to the corpus, and then we draw down on the interest, dividends.
So
the income.
that's a key point. So again, Mayor, as I was saying, When we did our audit,
2016.
we had an opinion that the amount that was going into the corpus did not need to go into the corpus. And so we brought that to the attention of the commission at the time, and they elected to continue doing it in that fashion. I still, in my understanding of the definitions that are in there, disagree with that opinion. And I think we can go back and revisit that. Again, we as the elected officials decide what the policy is. And if we want to start directing less money into the corpus, which, as was explained, we can't touch the corpus, we may need to revisit that. Because if we need to do more expansion, if we want more money available to do things, then we don't need to be continually building up the corpus.
All right, so we can
revisit all of that, I think,
at some point in
a
time.
discussion.
Okay.
Mayor?
Yes, sir.
Also, I just wanted to add to this conversation. We did discuss this at my district pre-agenda meeting last night. And I will note that this communication to the commission was not unanimous from this board. And that was part of the discussion we had last evening. So there are many people that think that if it does come to pass where the school board is going to close or sell properties, schools, there are many people that actually think that this maybe is not the best way to go with those sites. They would rather see something like adaptive reuse of those buildings for affordable housing. In other words, this is a conversation that we, I think, need to have in the future about what exactly would happen if and when these school board sites are closed. Thank you.
Okay.
Carl, you alluded to something that you said it isn't a pre-need. In some ways it is, in some ways it's not.
So there's a difference between prearranged and pre-need.
Okay.
So pre-need comes into play when you are planning for a death or passing away. Prearranged is around the time that this is going to happen, and then you make those necessary arrangements at that time. So there's a distinction between the two.
And what can we do and what are we not allowed to do? Which one of the?
Pre-need.
So type of things that we can and cannot
So
do.
if you're about to die, you
Like
go
if you're
there,
terminal, right.
and you can say, okay, I'm here to arrange for my
For
funeral.
a funeral this date, but you can't say I want to have a funeral like 5 years from now.
Well, we can, so on a prearranged basis, we can sell the plot only. We can't sell anything else. The state of Florida would now not allow us to do so. We don't have the pre-need license in order to. There are some people that want to come because they don't have family, they don't have heirs, and they want to take care of all of their arrangements. However, we can't do so at that time for a pre-need.
But could you sell the plot though?
We can sell the plot
As
on a
far in
pre-arranged
advance
all
as
day
you
long.
want.
All day long, every day we do that.
Okay.
If a person has a death that has occurred, we can sell everything. You know, the plot, opening and closing, vault, marker, whatever they desire.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay. Any further thoughts? Thank you. Well, thank you. We appreciate the work of the committee, and thank you for keeping us informed as to this. And it's something that we have to. How many more? What's the projected number of months or years you feel we have left going forward?
A few.
Few what? Months?
I-
Months or
This
years?
is a guess, of course. I don't know.
Carl,
5
what's
years,
the,
maybe?
what's the
Before
what's
what?
the-
Before we run out of real estate?
So we are pretty much buried out, if you will, at 3 of our 4 cemeteries. Lauderdale Memorial, we have more than enough space that'll last, I would assume, 10 years or so.
10 years. Okay.
But that's the only available space that we have in the city, outside of when we build mausoleums.
Okay.
Sunset, what is the date for sunset?
Yesterday.
Yes, okay. And that's why I talk about that double deck
yeah.
opportunity, because so many families from the community, they definitely utilize that particular cemetery, and that would be a great opportunity, if that's the right term, but that would be a possibility where they can still be with their family members.
Okay, makes sense.
And Carl, what's the
Mistakes.
projection for the mausoleum capacity? What is that projection going forward?
So just to double back to Commissioner Beasley's question. So we had those gardens have to be designated as a double deaf plot. We don't have that availability at Sunset because of inventory and water table. And then for the mausoleums, we are anticipating to on board 3 for 476 cribs. So that'll last us.
3 mausoleums spread
Yes.
throughout the 4 facilities, or
No, just at Sunset Memorial Gardens, because we've been sold out of mausoleum crypts for about close to 3 years now.
in the other 3?
And so Evergreen doesn't have mausoleums. We just have private estates and niche banks. At Lauderdale Memorial Park, it's our plan to build one mausoleum, a big mausoleum for probably around 700 crypts.
Okay. Thank you very much.
And Vice Mayor, if you want a private mausoleum, I understand you have to buy several plots in order to accommodate the area. So, and I think you're well deserving of a monument.
I really appreciate that. Thank you very
Mayor.
much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay, I think that's it with regard to communications. Did I miss? Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. You're right. So the Planning and Zoning Board has come to the City Commission asking us to revisit the parking requirement with regard to medical office space in the city of Fort Lauderdale. Chris, do you have any thoughts on that? Chris Cooper?
Mayor, Commissioners, Chris Cooper, Development Services Department. So the Planning and Zoning Board at their last meeting had a conversation about medical offices in particular and the parking requirements. They have seen a number of requests for reductions in the last 4 or 5 years. An overwhelming amount in terms of other parking reductions have been medical office uses. So they have asked you to direct us as staff to go and look at the requirements in our code for parking requirements for medical offices and determine if there's a more accurate way to calculate what is actually needed for a medical office and different types of medical offices based on potentially the number of practitioners, the number of rooms available to provide service, and not just the square footage of the overall office building itself.
Yes, Commissioner Herbst.
Thank you, Mayor. So with Imperial Point and Holy Cross in my district, you can imagine I have a lot of medical offices up there. So this is an item that's near and dear to my heart. Back GERS owned a medical office building up there around 48th Street, if I remember correctly. And the biggest single issue we had was parking requirements for GERS with that. My proposal with this, because I understand that there's a very complicated way of looking at all this. I think the most simplistic way of addressing this is simply to say that medical offices are the same as every other office. It's a very simple, elegant approach to dealing with this. I wouldn't suggest that applies the same way to urgent care, because urgent care does generate a lot more traffic. But I think medical offices, because for a medical office, you're scheduling 90% of the visits there. They know who's coming, when they're coming. They don't overschedule people excessively because a doctor can only be in so many rooms at the same time. So I'd like staff to just look at perhaps just classifying the same as well. And best thing about that is we can go back and forth. So what's a medical office today could be a law office tomorrow. It can be something else down the road. So I'd like the staff, to take a look at that. Thank you.
Okay.
Great.
And the final is the Budget Advisory Board meeting. The Budget Advisory Board sent a communication to the City Commission. The board recommends that the city look into changing the ordinance to make the landlord the ultimate guarantor of delinquent utility bills, which currently total $7.5 million. Wow. What do you think about that?
It's a good idea.
So what happens with the FP&L bill? Who is responsible for that? It would be the person on the account, not the landlord, right? Not the owner of the building. So the suggestion is to assess the owner of the building for water, sewer, garbage, and so forth, which I think makes sense, I guess. Who do we get to study this?
There are municipalities, Mayor, that do have this in place. I don't think it would be so hard to just take a look at a template from another city. I don't know why we haven't done this, although I do remember not that long ago there was some opinion that maybe we couldn't go there, but I think we can go there, and we can do it in a way that other municipalities do it.
Linda, what do you think? What are your thoughts on that?
Good afternoon, Linda Short, Director of Finance. This is one of our touch points. We have a utility billing system that we allow renters to come in. We're not collecting Social Security numbers and stuff like that because we can't legally put it on the application. And so we're having a hard time collecting on it. The money sits out there, the person leaves, and then we have no recourse to get the money back. So we send it to collection agencies and they don't pay. And so it just sits there. With the owner, if the owner was a guarantor, what would happen is if their tenant didn't pay, we would switch the bill to their name. And if they don't pay it, we have an ability to lien it until we can get paid for it at a later date. So
Have we ever gotten a deposit on utility bills?
we get deposits on it, but most of the time the deposits do not cover. And also after a full year of paying on time, your deposit gets refunded to you. So if you pay good for the first year, we refund the money, and then you delinquent a year later, we have nothing there to apply it to.
What about cutting off that issue right away by doing, I think, what some cities do, where the tenant cannot even open the account in his or her name, that only can be done by the landlord, the owner.
Right, and that's what we're looking to do. Either one of the suggestions is to make it only owners who can open it, or the other one is to allow the guarantor, meaning that the owner will be the guarantor, so they'll let their leaseor or their renter open it, but if they don't pay, they're ultimately financially responsible for it.
Because landlords do require a security deposit.
They sure do.
Again, I would actually prefer just skipping right away to the owner has to open up the account.
I can tell you my utility billing team would love that.
Well, you bypass that potential problem right away.
Yep.
Okay.
Greg, what are your thoughts?
So I actually did this in Hallandale, and it improved not only having accountability, but the management from staff was reduced because you had less people to deal with, and you were dealing with the landlord. The landlord has enough resources and also has the ability, like you said, Vice Mayor Glassman, to impose securities so that make sure that, the water bill is taken care of.
So when you say we did this in Hallandale, what is this?
A policy similar to this, that we only open accounts with owners. Landlords.
But owners only.
The owners.
The owners of the property, not renters.
So how does a landlord collect on, I guess it's part of the rent? So they pay the rent plus whatever the bill is? Okay. Because I'm a landlord. I want to see how cumbersome that is. Okay.
Well, we wouldn't want it to be too cumbersome for you, Mayor.
Thank
so
you.
So we'll figure it out.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, I have a question.
Yes, go ahead.
Is that, I'm trying to visualize this over the, all scopes of this. Single-family duplex to a 300 unit apartment complex, would that also apply? How does that work?
It depends. So most of the time, apartment buildings have an association or something along that, so we would build a management company. It all depends. And, we have some instances where you have a master meter and then you have those sub-meters.
Right.
And those are handled by the owner's rep. They have a company that do those sub-metering. They don't come to the city of Fort Lauderdale. We have the master meter, and that goes to the property owner.
Okay.
So
this is what we're talking about today is more for a smaller scale.
Exactly.
So, single-family duplex, triplex.
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? There being none.
So are we going to be working on that?
So what direction could we give staff going forward? Do we want to change the policy so that tenants are not allowed to open an account in their name and that it must always be in the landlord? Do we want to do it just on, single-family homes, multifamily? I mean, how do we want to do that? Let's say a landlord owns 100 units. Is the landlord going to be responsible for 100 water bills?
The landlord could do things such as increasing the rent and
security deposit.
Or, he doesn't charge for the water. It's just included. He just charges more for the base rent.
Why don't you do a little research on that? if you could, and talk to some of the larger buildings, which are corporately owned, and see what the logistics of that, how practical that would be. Because I do think that $7.5 million is a lot of money.
Yes.
It's ridiculous. They could close that funding gap for next year.
Well, it's utility billing money, so it would not hit the general fund.
Thank you so much.
But it would reduce the neighbors' billing in the future.
Yeah.
Yes.
And my question is, this overall total, is this one annual fee? Is this like a over a 5-year period?
A longer time than that.
Period than
Yeah.
that.
It's cumulative. Are we collecting? Are we assessing interest too?
We are, but we're not going to collect it. If we're not collecting the base, I mean, we're adding interest and penalties to it, but really to no avail because we're having a hard time collecting it.
Linda, do we have a way that we know the names of these people so that if they come back and rent an apartment again or try to open accounts, in other words, is there a way to cross-reference all of that and to find, oh, that's the person that already owes X amount of dollars?
Yeah, we typically do that, yes.
Okay.
We will look up the person's name to see if they have an active account, and if they don't have an active account, to see if there's anything delinquent. We do that as a part of our process.
Thank you.
Has there been a policy where a tenant can open up an account on their name, but the landlord is the default obligor in case the tenant doesn't pay?
I think that was the recommendation from the BAB, is to do that, where the tenant can open it, but like they said, the landlord is a guarantor.
Right.
So if the tenant does not pay and leaves, we can then transfer the bill to the guarantor, which would be the landlord, to pay the bill.
I'd be more comfortable with that going forward, because it's initially the burden is on the tenant, who should be responsible for their own water. Okay, why don't you come back to us with the recommendation?
Mayor, if I might, there is a chapter 180 Florida statutes that governs how landlords and tenants are treated for water bills. So I want to make sure we take into account what they propose to do, that it's consonant with that. It's a little complex, but there's a way to work through it.
Yep, and I can tell you, I dealt with this one of my previous cities when I was the finance director. We had a very similar problem, and we tried to make the landlords responsible for it, and we ran into some legal challenges with that. So I understand what Tom is referring to. As a corollary to that, though, to your point, Linda, we're not going to collect that money. So at some point, I think staff should come back with a recommendation to write this off. We've talked about that through the years, so it's probably time to get these uncollectible accounts off of our books. It makes no sense to continue to carry something that is a phantom number on our balance sheet. So,
I agree, sir.
I've seen, there's another issue that popped up. It's not the same thing, but like a corollary to that, where there'll be a developer, like townhouses, maybe a dozen townhouses there, and they end up, the developer has the bill, and all of a sudden they transfer that to the people who eventually own it, and like a year or two later they find out that the developer has not been paying the bill, and it falls onto the person who owns it. And I know people have tried to erase that, but it falls on the new owners. How does that work?
Well, I have actually a case like that I'm dealing with right now, and we've changed the ordinances recently within the last year to get rid of the construction meter. Because what we would do, we would give them a construction meter, and they had a responsibility during the construction period to send us the reads. They weren't sending us the reads. After 2.5 years, the building was constructed, they were done, and they turned in the meter 6 months after the project was basically CO'd.
And then you throw it on to the new owner. Who should be responsible, the developer or the?
It should have been the developer during the development time. However, when the property is transferred to the owner, they pay them for the construction. They were building it. So, lucky for us, it came in a case in point where the vendor who constructed the building had deposits with the city's building departments for their different permits, and they were trying to get refunds for the deposits. Finance was able to catch that and say, we're not going to refund you deposits because you owe us money for your construction meter you didn't pay. Net, it worked out where we're still upside down about $12,000, but we were able to collect about $40,000 of it just from refunds that they were trying to get from the city, even though they owed us money for their construction meter.
But if you don't connect, it does fall onto the new owner.
It does fall onto the new owners because they're the owners of the property and they assumed the title. Yes.
Okay. So is there a way to carry that concept forward, just like we just heard, or even when, let's say, a person buys a condominium, if there are any outstanding payments due, that'll all come up in the estoppel, and those have to be settled.
Absolutely.
Can we do that with
Not
these utilities?
with rentals.
So that the utility
Not with the rentals.
So we can't make any of these bills transfer over with the address of the property. It only has to be with the individual person who was the renter.
So
they can't travel with the address.
So what we do is when a neighbor leaves or someone leaves a property, you still have to have a bill. We will then, when we cancel the renter's account, we'll open up an account for the owner for the minimum payments. You have a minimum monthly amount that we have to charge for base fees. So when the renter leaves, we do open up an owner's account and bill those base charges to the owner until a new renter comes in, but we never transfer the outstanding bill that was due from that renter onto the owner, and this process will allow us to do that.
Well, what I'm saying is, even if we don't do this process, is that legally even possible that we just have a policy where those bills get transferred with the property versus the name of the person it was under?
I think we'd have to talk to legal about that. I don't know if legally we can
Not
attach it.
Not for renters.
Not for renters.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. Okay, that concludes communications with the City Commission. We're on to Business 1, presentation by Special Counsel Gary Brown regarding the Las Olas parking garage. Hi there.
I'm going to introduce Gary Brown to you of Kelly Cronenberg. We retained him at my suggestion to you when you had trouble with the parking garage for both the mesh cladding and the lighting. He's been evaluating this. He's been out to the property. He's met with the people who worked on this, some of them who have retired, but he has interviewed them. There are voluminous pages of documents he's going through, and he's still going through some. I will have to tell you, as I think I've told you earlier, he cannot give you too much detail at a public meeting of litigation strategy, because, of course, then it discloses to the other parties, and you have several other parties who were involved. I did offer to you, each of you, after this is concluded, if any one of you want to meet one-on-one with him and myself, we are willing to do that so we can give you more details of what the plans are going forward. But he'll give you an idea of what we can do at this point and coming up to a possible litigation strategy.
Okay. Well, eventually, if we have to file a lawsuit, everything becomes public anyway, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Mr. Brown, how are you?
Let's push the green button.
No, you're good.
Okay.
You're good.
Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, as the city attorney said, I've been retained on behalf of the city to visit the property, which I did, and I've had some Zoom conferences with city staff, both current and previously involved in the project, that aren't with the city anymore. And I've looked through quite a bit of documentation. And in doing that, I've had discussions with the city attorney where I believe there's a good faith basis to proceed with litigation against the construction manager at risk, which was Skanska, as well as the architect who designed the project, as well as the subcontractors who were specifically involved in installing the garage and the lighting system. As far as next steps, one of the things that I had discussed with the city attorney was, as a precondition to filing a lawsuit, the law requires that we send a written notice to the parties that the city would intend to bring legal action against under a chapter called 558.
Hasn't that already happened?
The 558 notice, no. Well, let me take a step back. There were discussions with the parties involved, and this goes back several years, with when some issues came up, having them come out and do some evaluations. But in terms of taking that next step of formally putting them on notice pursuant to Chapter 558, which is known as the Construction Defect Statute, that notice goes out. It references the statute and provides, in this case, a 60-day time period where they could formally respond. They could come out and do their own inspection.
I would research that. I mean, I specifically recall conversations with our previous city manager in which when we engaged other counsel, that a lot of that had been done. If it had not been done, that really concerns me. I don't know what they were playing with themselves all these years, rubbing up against the statute of limitations, which is a big concern of mine right now.
Yes, sir.
And, this has been a problem since day one, at least with the mesh around the garage. The lighting became an issue later, but the mesh has been a problem since day one, and I can't believe that we have not filed in a formal 558 notice to them. So please research that, because that's going to be crucial.
Yes, I would certainly do that. If one wasn't sent, we can send one. We're still within the statute of limitations, but that period is closing shortly.
Rapidly, yeah.
Rapidly. And under the statute, when we serve that notice, it tolls the statute of limitations for...
So get going. I don't want to reveal your strategies.
No. Again, as the city attorney suggested, I could have a discussion outside of a public meeting in terms of litigation strategy. I mentioned generally the parties that the city should pursue, but there's certain legal theories to pursue them. But in general, once that statute is triggered, the parties receiving that notice would have
60 days.
Well, we couldn't file the suit sooner than 60 days. But once we do that, then they have the opportunity to respond, to come inspect the property. At the end of the day, they have the ability either offer to pay the city money, offer to make some repairs. I don't know that that's a feasible option at this point, short of removal and replacement. But nonetheless, they could make whatever offer they want, and we would be able to consider that, and we're not obligated to accept the offer. We could reject it, but as long as we go through the process of the statute, then the city would be allowed to sue. Certainly we'd want to engage them in good faith settlement negotiations during that period to see if there's a way to either resolve the claims entirely or even in part. Under the statute, you can resolve some of the claims, they get resolved, and then the case could proceed with other claims.
Well, I think the commission is very concerned about being aggressive on this. This has lingered for too long. It's a big ticket, a big expense, and it has become an iconic feature on our beach, which we have now lost because of the failure of the construction and the feasibility of that lighting system, which for some reason stopped working. And it's really a shame that we got this far. So, does anyone have any questions?
Just
Mr.
a
Brown?
comment. I just want to ensure that we're also talking about the mesh screening in addition to the lighting. That it's both those issues.
Yes, Mr. Glass.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else? There being none. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
And please stay in touch with Mr. Ansbro, and so he can give us periodic reports as to what's milestones that you've achieved. And because the commission really wants this thing to move forward, we want to see.
Understood.
We want to see, retribution.
Yeah, I think at this point it was sort of going through the documentation, having those interviews to determine, at least from my perspective, what were the issues and what was the potential legal recourse against various parties. That process took a while, but we've concluded that. And obviously are prepared to proceed with a 558 notice.
Okay. Thank you so much, Mr. Brown. We appreciate it. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, good day.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Business 2, New River Crossing Update, Part 6. Who will be making that presentation? Ben?
Good afternoon, Mayor, Commission. Ben Rogers, Director of Transportation Mobility. So today what we're here to do is just really summarize the efforts that have gone on for the last 90 to 120 days. If you recall, back in December of 2023, you approved an agreement with BDO to further develop the project layout for a New River crossing. And they submitted a report to the city earlier this week or late last week. And so really just wanted to kind of memorialize their efforts and then seek direction from the commission on next steps. So most of the information you're going to hear today, you've heard over the last couple months. As you can see, we're at Part 6, so we've done routine updates to keep you up to speed as we go. BDO is here today. Umer and Nasri are not, but Tom and Seth representing the BDO will be here if there's any questions. So the first kind of task that they had was to create an alignment really focused on optimizing the financial impacts and mitigating some of the challenges that were identified. And you can see here the short concept starts just south of Sistrunk and ends just north of Southwest 7th Street. It does have a 55-foot below median water line for the tunnel. It has a bright line or a station underneath Broward Boulevard, and it comes in at $888 million for the base case scenario. The capital cost, as we said, is $888 million. That was well within the initial rough order of magnitude that BDO provided. You can see here some of the things that includes. And I think the biggest thing is to identify that it does have a 33% contingency of construction costs factored into that, which is
33%?
Yep, which is almost $200 million.
Okay.
On the operating maintenance side, this is something that was a little more defined since the last meeting we had. I think BDO had this earmarked around $2 or $2.5 million. They did some refining and came back with about $1.9 million for an annual operating and maintenance. That includes a 30% contingency factor, and it's very important to distinguish the difference between the train operations and the passenger operations versus maintaining the tunnel. So this dollar figure is just for the infrastructure of the O&M and not necessarily the operations of the train. I'm going to ask Seth to come up now and talk a little bit about the grant opportunities. One of the challenges that we have, or one of the opportunities we have right now, is that there's a lot of federal funding out there that's available. However, they all have tight timelines. And on the next slide, when we get there, I'm going to be asking from feedback from the Commission on next steps and if we want to pursue any of these grant opportunities. And so with that, I'm going to bring up Seth to talk a little bit about these grants and the culture in DC.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Commissioner. So as you have in front of you, I won't read all of this because it's a little bit lengthy, but there are several grants and there's more beyond this available to the city now to help with the planning and development and the construction of this project. I can tell you, one question that's coming up, for the mega grant, the Christie grant, and the intercity rail, there is a local match of 20%, which is kind of the traditional. For the Innovative Finance and Asset Concession Grant, the first $1 million, there is no local match, and then everything above that, there's a 50% local match. First $1 million. So these are all opportunities. I can tell you, I flew in from Washington, D.C., so the obligatory joke, I am from Washington, I'm here to help, that there is an awareness and support for this project in around the federal government, especially in USDOT. I think many of you know that. There's a keen interest in getting this done for all sorts of rail and connectivity, not just here in Fort Lauderdale, but within Broward County and the 3 counties to make sure that this happens. And there's definitely an urgency as well that comes along with that support for these grants. So the idea that, yes, there's support for this project, support to get this done and awareness, but also an urgency that the timelines for these grants for applications are rapidly approaching. Some are next month, some are a little bit farther into summer, but there's definitely a need, if the city is going to go after these grants, to get it done as quickly as possible, or to make sure that you are in the front of the line to capitalize on these grants to help maximize the federal support for this project. Happy for any other questions on the grants or anything I might have missed that you'd like to hear more about, just the grants, and then we go on to other parts.
So when it says local match, that, I mean, we would probably consider the county money, which is from the 1 cent sales tax. So that's kind of what we're looking at, right?
That'd be up to the county and yourselves of how you want to come up with that local match. How do you want to fund that local match? But whatever sources you have need to be able to.
That's what it's intended. So let's just say, for example, if the project costs $888 million, okay, and it might cost less if the contingency is not used completely up. So let's say $800 million, and the local match is going to be like just under $200 million, right? And the county was budgeting how much for the bridge? Do you recall?
I don't recall how much for the bridge, but to go back a little bit to your question, it would be the 20% of the grant that you receive from the federal government, so not the totality. If you were lucky enough to get the totality, it would be 20% of the requirement. So I can't speak too much to the bridge because I know that the county right now is doing an analysis, their own analysis on bridge options. And so depending on what option they would select would dictate the cost of that, the capital cost of that project.
Okay. All right, good. All right. Proceed.
And so the next steps, right? We're really looking for commission feedback and direction. We've finalized and memorialized the report. We do have the RIA grant that the commission approved last month. I talked to the grantor late last week, and we should have a fully executed agreement back from them sometime this week. Once that happens, then we are required to the grant to have a kickoff meeting with them sometime in the first 4 weeks to kind of talk about next steps, timelines, and really get the ball rolling. So the RIA grant is one step away from moving forward and starting to deliver on those objectives. As a reminder to the commission, we did submit a RAISE grant. Again, BDO helped us through that process in February with this effort. That is pending at this point. We're expecting some kind of announcement or award sometime over the summer, and that was, again, to supplement the RIA grant with another $2.5 million, I believe, to keep the efforts moving forward. And so really, again, I'm trying to get some feedback on these grant opportunities, and if we would pursue them, if we pursue them for a full amount, if we'd be going after a small number, if we have local funds to match. As Seth said, there are requirements on the funding side. And then just realistically, we have 2 to 3 weeks to turn this around, and we might need some external consultants or some help to put it together to meet those deadlines. So at that point, I'll pause, Mayor, and get some feedback.
Well, I'll open up to the commission in just a second, but is there a reason why we wouldn't ask for the full amount, less the local match?
Yeah, I think the local match is probably the challenge at this point.
Right, I understand that, but I'm just saying, is there some reason why we wouldn't ask for the full amount, like in the mega grant, like we wouldn't ask for, the full amount of the cost of the tunnel, less the local match?
Yeah, I think it's just a strategy decision. If you're going to go for all of it and see where we get, I mean, you could also go for a lesser amount to do some of the pre-design work, do some more geotechnical, continue to advance the project, and then in a subsequent year ask for a much larger amount. So I think it's just strategy.
So,
Mr. Mayor?
So that's a process. Okay. Yes, Greg.
Yeah, we strongly advise to look at going for concisely what can be achievable, which is right now a lot of pre-planning work, conceptualizing, and getting a lot of community input. Putting something like that forward needs a ton of consensus in order to be considered and in order to be awarded. So something that would be very feasible is having pre-planning efforts be part of the grant application. That should be the desire of the commission.
So that would be the goal that at this point then is to have the planning part of it paid for by US DOT, correct?
Yeah, we can put a scope together on different magnitudes and sliding scale, again, depending on what amount or what comfort level the commission has for a local match, knowing that if we would get it, we would have to provide that local match.
Well, frankly, I mean, I think our local match needs to come from the county because that's why we all voted for the transportation tax. And the amounts of money that would be necessary are, not going to overwhelm the funds that are still. We got over $2 billion sitting there that is not being used. I brought this up at the MPO meeting this past week, and I can tell you there's a significant amount of interest in the cities tapping into that money because. I applaud the projects that the county are planning to move forward with, they're just not happening just yet. And while they don't happen, more and more money still accumulates. I believe the number I was told is $600 million every year. So, and you were there, Warren. So, and you saw the reaction that they were very eager.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Anyone? Who else wants to comment? Commissioner Herbst, do you have any thoughts?
Certainly. So I had a chance to talk with BDO during our break, and so I'd like to just touch on one of the things that we were discussing, just so we have more public discussion on it. So in the report, it talks about that the owner has to be the applicant for some of these grants. So would you just expand on that a little bit and talk about some of those opportunities and how we might approach that?
Yeah, for the actual award eventually, yes, the owner would need to be there. I think everybody thinks that needs to be the county at some point. The position we're in right now is the city because the work that you all have authorized. is in a position to really be the tip of the spear for the whole community, both Broward County and South Florida, frankly, for this, to advance into these applications with an understanding that, frankly, the federal money, I think Seth could speak to this, never gets to an actual consummated grant absent agreement from everybody on the communities.
So I think that's important. We just need to be mindful of the fact that, and we talked about perhaps an ILA, if we apply for the grant and we're awarded the grant, that we're going to need an ILA with the county.
Right.
At the end of the day, we can't move forward with anything without the county being fully on board with us, and so we just need to continue that dialogue with the county. The other thing we talked about, and BDO explained that it really was outside the scope of what they were attempting to do, but I want to just get out there and say, if the tunnel becomes the feasible option for us, I really think we need to take a look at where it starts and where it ends, because right now it is on the south side of Sistrunk.
Yeah.
And the thing that I keep talking about, my number one concern with respect to all of the train line through Fort Lauderdale is that we facilitate east-west crossings. And going back to our early discussion about all the work that we have done, we have spent tens of millions of dollars on the Sistrunk corridor over the last 25 years. And I think that to have 100 trains a day blocking Sistrunk and east-west access just does a disservice to the neighborhood. So I think we really need to think about having that train come up on the north side of Sistrunk, and I don't mean to step on you, Pam, but I think it's very important that we not block Sistrunk at a grade level train. And then similarly on the south end at 7th Street, 7th Street is an important connection because it runs from Federal all the way across. So if I want to get from Federal over to 4th Avenue, that's an important east-west connector, and that's another one where I think we need to extend it a little bit further south than having it pop up out of the ground where it is. So I think one block further north and one block further south, I think would alleviate some of the main east-west congestion on two very important streets. Again, not my district, but I try to take a more holistic view.
Your point is well taken, and I think the alignment we can get to at some point. I wouldn't want to be focusing on that right now, but I do want to also point out to you that when Greg Stewart from the MPO came to us, I believe it was that he came to our meeting, and I want to make sure it wasn't just announced at the MPO meeting, but the state is interested in doing these underpasses, and for whatever reason.
Mm-hmm.
So I would love to see underpasses without extending the tunnel to Sunrise. I'd love to see an underpass under some of these significant east-west arteries, which might include Sistrunk, but I don't think an underpass would be appropriate there because of what's above ground.
Exactly.
But definitely at Sunrise, definitely at Commercial, definitely at Oakland, all the way up the line.
No,
right?
Agreed. I just think if we're going to have the train underground going just a little bit further, alleviates congestion at a very, very important east-west corridor. And I don't want the train coming up out of the ground and then going underground with an under. And as I was explaining to them, when I was in Jacksonville, we did a Better Jacks plan. This was over 20 years ago. And we built 10 overpasses through Jacksonville. And they were $50 million a pop 20 years ago. So they've not gotten cheaper. No. So doing an underpass is feasible, and I want to see them all throughout the city on every east-west corridor, whether it's District 1, District 2, 3, or 4, doesn't make a difference. I want to see them all throughout the city, because the number one complaint I hear from constituents is east-west. East-west,
I agree with you 100%.
So we have to focus on that, and I've had these similar conversations with Monica and with Greg Stewart, and I think there's a general consensus that that's important. But I think if we can solve two of these major streets just by extending it a block in either direction and avoiding a couple of underpasses, it would behoove us to build that into the plan, because it's also going to have an impact on the costs. So if we're looking at 888 as a number, maybe it's 988 to extend it a block in each direction. But I don't want us to be short-sighted and say we're going to look at at the cheapest solution because we were trying to fit this within a dollar time frame. If we're going to do this, it needs to be done in a workable way, and it needs to be a realistic way, because I've been around government long enough to see things get change ordered to death, and an $800 million project becomes a $2 billion project by the time it's done because of change orders. So I want to be very realistic when we present this to everybody, because if we know, I'll give you a great example, Mayor. The lockers at the Aquatic Center.
Right.
Okay, we all knew we were going to need air-conditioned lockers, but we put a contract out to bid so we could try and hit a $25 million number, and then we came back with a P3 proposal for a change order to put in air conditioners and lockers. And why anybody thought we didn't need air conditioners in South Florida and lockers is beyond me, but it wasn't there, and we put it in afterwards, and now we're at a $30 million project. I don't want to do that. So let's do some.
I agree with you 100%.
Let's do some. When we present this to everybody, let's be honest in what we're looking at. Let's incorporate everything that we know we're going to need in the project, come up with a cost that reflects what we know is going to be in the project. And then when we talk to the community, we're talking to them in an honest way. That's all. Thank you.
Agreed. Anything else? Commissioner Sturman.
Well, you come to, you know where the money is. You come right over here.
Well, you're on the MPO, so you're very familiar with these issues.
Yeah. Ben, if you could come on up, just a couple of things that we spoke about at pre-agenda. Okay, 888, that gives you a platform that can accommodate commuter rail. It's too short for Brightline. So if we're going to have a tunnel and you're going to have Brightline, you're going to have to extend it. And you came up with a number for an extended platform, the differential that would cost to fit the Brightline trains.
Yeah, one of the goals of this report was to go apples to apples, because over time there's been different concepts, and it really made it challenging to go to apples to apples. So you're correct, the platform that's in there now matched some of the other proposals that have been put forth. I don't have it in front of me, and I apologize, I can grab it, but I want to say it was $70 million to add to a separate platform or a longer platform, so Brightline would have.
And there was another cost also on the top, like escalators and whatnot, for access to that platform. That added another 15 or 20 million or something.
Yeah, there were three different, what I'll call add alternates for it. There was extending the platform, there was adding a dedicated Brightline entry and exit, and then there was also adding a second commuter rail entry and exit on the east side of the tracks, so that way there would be more accommodations.
Okay, so those, I think if you're going to, John had mentioned this last time we spoke, if you're going to do a tunnel, and to do it with just commuter and leaving Brightline at grade level, it doesn't make any sense. So I think when we look at it, we have to look at it with Brightline going through there too, so adding that. Again, no change orders at the end, so we know what we're getting into.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, the other thing, you did touch upon the undercuts. I know underpass is that term. And again, it's dear to the heart, because in my district too, they were looking at Davie and possibly State Road 84, which, a train versus tunnel doesn't help any of those other ones. So I believe the number was actually, John, closer to 100 million that BDO was floating around. So it's for each undercut. It's not 50. It's going up.
I don't think you. I don't.
20 years ago.
So it's,
Yeah,
and that's the
I don't
number.
think BDO didn't give any opinion.
No,
on
that
this.
that's not part of what they were talking about. And the other thing is, it's a different pot though. Those are state roads, and when I gather state funds for that, so it won't adversely affect yours one way or the other. So it's a whole different pot of money over there. But those are the only two things that I just wanted to point out.
Commissioner Beasley Pittman, do you have any thoughts?
No, we've talked about this several times. I'm okay with the conversation today.
Okay, great.
No input.
Vice Mayor?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. So, Ben or City Manager, where are we exactly with further discussions, joint meetings with the county on this? It's been sort of crickets lately, and I know we keep saying how important this is.
Mr. Kelleher is here. It's not crickets.
Yeah. Well, where are we, though? I mean, why aren't we meeting together? Why aren't we just reviewing? Has the county reviewed all of this from BDO? Have they mentioned it?
So last week when we finalized the report, the city manager sent a commission memo out to the commission to make them aware of the report. We forwarded that memorandum and the report to not just the county, but FDOT and some other key stakeholders, FEC, Brightline, Marine Industries, DDA, just so everyone would have the same information and can digest it. The county has followed up. They said that they're reviewing the information. They've actually asked for additional information that I'm coordinating with BDO at this point. They haven't ruled out a joint meeting, but I think they want to do their due diligence and understand what the report has in it before they schedule something.
And do we see any timeline going forward? even though they might be reviewing this, is there a parallel path where design for the bridge is moving forward? Where are we with that path as well, do you know?
Yeah, for scheduling a joint meeting, again, I don't have any definitive dates or position on that. For the county's effort on the bridge, my understanding is that they do have a contract in place, and that they're looking at sometime in summer to have some initial results.
For the bridge.
For the bridge concept.
Schematics.
That's correct.
Okay, so I bring up these questions, I bring up these concerns, because I don't want us just, talking in our own little bubble here and just,
Well, I think we each know what each government is doing, and I think that there's positivity to all of this because while they're funding their efforts to determine the feasibility of a bridge, it's my expectation that they will come to the realization that the tunnel will ultimately be more financially feasible. But I think we all need to get there. Instead of speculating, we all need to pursue it, flesh it out, find out the real numbers, and then we'll be able to decide best, we meaning the county commission and the city commission, what the best course of action is. I think it behooves us to continue what we're doing. I think the county is depending on us to continue doing what we're doing because they too would ultimately want to see which is the most financially feasible approach in which to take.
Sounds good. Thank you.
All right.
Mayor,
further, Greg.
If I can ask IT to pull back a couple of slides, the one that has the red, that one right there. So this is very important. Honorable Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Commission, these dates, this team can make it happen because they have enough information from all their studies. You have, I believe, 5 studies achieved so far. But there's enough information that you could use that content to submit an application there. However, as we've been advised, it would get greater merit if we submit something that has concurrence with the county. So we would like to get firm direction. Is this something that you would like us to pursue any of these grants? If it's for pre-planning initiatives, then we would like to know that. If you would like us to reiterate to the county the urgent need to meet jointly, we can also accommodate that. We just would like to get your direction on those.
Well, I think we'd be kidding ourselves if we thought the county wanted to participate in this aspect of the effort. They're doing their thing on the bridge, and since we're just talking about planning right now, we're not asking for $1 billion. We're asking for a much smaller amount of money, and I think when it comes to planning and you call it pre-planning, I think those kinds of things make sense for us to move forward. They have not denied us grant monies in the past we've gotten grant monies, and the county was not part of those applications. And I think we can continue down that path because ultimately I think the city and the county will come together when we actually need to make the ask for the construction and the engineering aspect of whatever project we move forward with. Alrighty.
So we will proceed and apply for these for pre-planning activities unless we hear anything further.
I think it makes the most sense.
Wait.
Yes, sir.
Okay, 1.7 billion, 557 million. I mean, some of this is for. Is it just planning, or some of this is for construction, design? What are we looking at?
Pre-planning.
What?
You can only do pre-planning right now.
Yeah, we're not looking for 1.7 billion. We're just looking for pre-planning.
Well, the fear I have, and I could also speak to the city attorney about this too, and John did bring this up. We start, whatever we do, we're going to need to work with the county.
Right.
We start applying for these grants or pieces of these grants and taking a piece here without them. My concern is going to affect the ability when we do get together to actually, we're doing it on our own, not with the county, and I think that might be harming our chances of getting these grants or any future grants. Mr. City Attorney, we don't own the project. We're not the ones who's going to be building it and financing it. Is there any issue with us applying for grant money for something that at this point we don't own and we're not the lead in financing it?
I think BDO is telling you that ultimately you need the owner of the project to follow up. I don't think we can apply for the grants, but we're not going to be able to conclude them without owner assent.
Right, and there's no guarantee that the county's going to pony up for the match, so it is a risk on our part.
You have doors closing on these grants is what's coming up.
Well, how quickly could we get the county on board with us? City manager?
And if I may, just to address that question, so for the pre-planning grants, especially the Innovative Finance and Asset Concession Grant, because it is such a short time frame to go, that you can, if I may use the dual track of communicating with the county, the city itself can go after these pre-planning grants, because ultimately the pre-planning, if you're looking at a lot of this, doesn't necessarily have to be, it's never bridge versus tunnel, it's a river crossing. So you're using these funds to come up with the real concept that you're going to go after. So it is pre-planning for that. So there's nothing that would stop in our opinion.
So it's environmental, it's engineering, it's all the things that any project is going to have to,
yes, it's
any
all those
project is going to have
things
to
you go after.
address.
Once you get to the much larger grants, the larger actual project grants, that's where the owner of the asset really has to come into play. But having that communication, ultimately getting to some sort of joint agreement to go after those much larger grants, that's the critical jump.
Well, you had mentioned something earlier that federal government likes to see everybody working together on the same page, unity going. We start doing pieces of this on our own. Does it negatively impact the chances for getting the bigger bucks down the line? Will it put a negative spin in D.C.?
So maybe I could answer that question because I've had a lot of interaction with US dot. You're right. When the city is ready to appeal to the federal level for funding for construction, it is important that there is consensus not only with the county, but with the community, the business community, and even other stakeholders that need to understand more this system. So I want you to think about this project is going to have various phase gates. These are control points that you're going to reach, and you're going to look at these checkpoints and determine what will be the path. I think right now what's important is having these pre-planning initiatives that will do initiatives such as stakeholder awareness and registration, which you need to enumerate all of the different parties that may positively or negatively be impacted by this project. And I'll tell you that one stakeholder that needs to be considered in all of this is the Coast Guard. I'm not sure that we've had involved discussions with the Coast Guard about how this system will impact navigation, their regulations and compliance. Pursuing a grant in this magnitude will allow the city to have experts that have already done this to engage in discussions, just like we've done about the pre-planning for City Hall, where we've had ample participation so that when the commission decides, if they decide to go on and embark upon a City Hall, they've already encountered all of the concerns, all perhaps already considered risk issues. All of that can be encompassed with pre-planning efforts. So again, all of this is something that the city, in its best interest, because I haven't heard anyone doing any of these efforts. So before you know it, there will be a system presented in front of the community, whether it's by county or city, and that awareness will be very necessary so that when you get to that phase gate and you present this to the US dot, you have that checkbox check. I've already assessed all stakeholders. They are aware. These are the concerns. These are the risks. And this is how we're going to plan for the project with those risks and concerns in mind.
Okay. All right. Very good. Thank you. So please proceed. All right. Thank you. Mr. Keller, did you want to say anything? You're good? Okay. Okay. City manager recruitment. Who's doing that?
Good afternoon, Mayor, Commissioners. Jerome Post, Director of Human Resources. I've come before you today to open up the discussion and ask for some direction on how you'd like to recruit the next city manager. I will tell you that following City Manager Cheveria's announcement 2 weeks ago, I did have HR staff reach out to some of the agencies that we normally use to recruit executive level positions. There were 5 of them, and all 5 did report back positively that they would be interested in submitting a bid for this work.
I've also been getting calls from other city managers wanting the job.
How much does it pay? Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe.
I've been. The only thing I know from what other members of this commission have said is what I read in the newspaper. So there's some people that want to do a nationwide search. I don't know whether we have to, but it doesn't matter. My big concern is if we do a nationwide search, we're going to get so many applications that it's going to inundate your department in trying to sift through the good from the bad and the ugly. And so casting the net just in the state of Florida, trying to attract people who already know Florida, who know our issues, who know our challenges, who know the politics. It was just an idea, but again, I'm not adverse to going nationwide. I'm just saying, I just want it to be practical because we would like to be able to find somebody sooner than later. And what are your thoughts, Commissioner Herbst?
Thank you, Mayor. Appreciate that. I've been through a lot of city manager recruitments during my years here and in the other cities that I've been with. So I've got a lot of experience with this, and I have some thoughts about it. So one, yes, I think the nationwide search is imperative. A city of our size, stature, complexity, prominence, I think we deserve the best person we can find, and that's a nationwide search, whether it's somebody from Florida, whether it's somebody from right next door, or whether it's somebody from Grand Rapids, Michigan. I don't care. I want absolutely the best city manager we can find. So that's the first thought. The other thing I'd like to do is I'd like to make sure, as we did when we hired Lee Feldman, that we have a citizens committee that will participate. So I view this as a search firm does the initial recruitment. They bring back that 100 resumes. They cull it down to, and this is an arbitrary number, 15 or 20. We have a citizens committee that reviews that. They don't make any choices, but they make recommendations to us. And I have some ideas about that. I think we should have a couple of folks from the Council of Civic Associations. I'd like to see some people from the business community, the Broward Alliance, the DDA, faith-based community. There's a lot of people that I think need to have some input because these are all the stakeholders that our city manager is going to need to have relationships with. So I'd like them all to participate in that. The next thing is I don't think that we should rush this process. I think it would be a mistake to try and hire somebody before the election for a variety of reasons. First off is the commission that's incoming, whoever that may be, is entitled to choose their own candidate. The second thing is I think it will improve our applicant pool if we wait till after the commission, because one thing that any applicant has to be concerned about is the change in the composition of their bosses shortly after they've been hired. So it's going to have a chilling effect on the people that are willing to apply. So I think that's an important one. I'm thinking that if we have the election, the new commission is seated in December, we give them a meeting or two to get their feet under them, and we look at January for the commission to maybe begin having some of those interviews. Let me give you some other thoughts that I have here too. I've kind of made this statement around, so some of you may have heard this, but we need to choose an interim, and it is imperative for the functioning of the organization that everybody on staff understands who they're reporting to, who is driving the agenda. We are in the middle of developing our budget, as we just heard from our earlier discussion today with the Budget Advisory Board. It's critical that we maintain our momentum on this. For the next couple of months, we have to present a budget by charter to the City Commission at our July meeting. And so my recommendation is going to be Susan Grant for a variety of reasons. First of all, she is the most experienced financial person we have in the city, and she can carry that project through to its conclusion. And again, I think that's probably the most critical thing on our plate. It's the most important thing that governments do every year is the adoption of their annual budget. Second thing is, Susan will not be a candidate for the permanent position. As she has expressed to me, she has no interest in the job. Again, when we go out and we recruit, our recruiting firm needs to be able to tell the city manager community that the interim is not a candidate, because it's commonly understood that interims have the inside track to a job. And again, it discourages people from applying. It narrows the pool of candidates. If we want the best, brightest, most talented person, having an interim in that position that is not a candidate will foster the largest pool we can possibly get. So that's kind of the next thought. And then the last thing with respect to Mr. Chavarria, I think the best option for him during this interim period is twofold. He's given a 60-day notice, and there's two options that we have at this time. One is simply to write a check to him for his 60 days. The other, which I think is more valuable, is if he's amenable to it, keeping him on as a consultant for knowledge transfer. So we appoint an interim today, and then Mr. Chavarria is available to that interim in order to facilitate, again, knowledge transfer, basically, do a brain dump over the next 60 days. And I would also propose that we allow Mr. Chavarria to run out all of his leave time, be that sick leave and vacation leave, during this period of time. So those are all my thoughts. Happy to answer any questions about any of that, but I have a list, comprehensive.
Okay.
You can tell I've thought this through.
Yeah, that's fine. Commissioner Beasley Pittman.
And I have to follow John, right? Okay.
Sorry about that, Pam.
That's okay. Very comprehensive. You always give great facts when you present. Where I'm at regarding our search, if I can get one clarity regarding national versus state of Florida. When someone apply and we say national, to me, I'm hearing anywhere within our national U.S. But even outside of that, can someone just apply, saying for the state of Florida? Because so many people online now, what stops you from being in the state of Florida with an online application? So,
well, if they have, let's say, for example, they currently have a job, like in Maine or or in Portland, Oregon, that kind of identifies where they're coming from. Yeah.
But those who may be unemployed but just living in a
between
different
jobs.
State, between jobs.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to see, how do we define that national search, which would actually identify national versus the state of Florida?
Well, Commissioner, you're absolutely right. With today's technology, the reality is that if you engage a search firm, they will post the position on their website. They will post it with all the professional organizations and communications. And by virtue of those postings, it will be a national search. Now, if you're interested in a more local focus, you could put into the recruitment brochure a phrase such as Florida experience preferred or something like that. That may cause some candidates from outside the state to withhold their applications. That's just up to you how you'd like to run that.
Okay. And the other part of that particular question, it was said the national search would extend an opportunity, making it a bigger pool. Are we able to put a cap on the number of applications, or would we even want to put a cap on the number of applications?
Can you put a cap on it?
I have not run a search yet where a cap was instituted. Again, if you do go with a search firm, they would be the ones to filter all of those applications anyway, and the onus would be on them rather than HR staff.
I mean, I would like to see a current city manager apply for the job. I mean, that would be important to us, but I guess it doesn't have to be that. I mean, we're trying to figure out how to filter through some of the applications. We don't want like an administrative assistant applying for the city manager job. So some of those criteria would have to like be baseline requirements, and Florida preferred. It's hard to say, I mean, Lee Feldman was Florida, George Gretzis was New York. Floyd Johnson was Broward County.
We don't have to vet them on the application. We could let them apply and vet them on the back end as they come in too.
Well, that's true. You're right, but I mean, it helps them if we get 1,000 applications. Right. It helps staff, distill through the process so that we're not inundated with 100 applications that we don't want to go there. So what are you suggesting then?
Okay. With that, I some of the things that John did talk about moving forward as into going through the process when we streamline and determine who are considered for the position. I do appreciate the idea for the citizen review panel. I think that's a good idea, and then maybe adding a couple other opportunities of the stakeholders who would be a part of that process. Moving from that part of the conversation in regards to the interim opportunity, right now, not any particular order, just who I am would be willing to have a conversation about are 3 individuals, Susan Grant, Anthony Finaro, and also Chris Cooper.
Right.
So these are some places where right now I'm on in a place where I'm thinking and giving consideration. So this is where I'm at today. Not necessarily at this moment wanting to identify someone today in this setting.
Right. I don't think we have to do that.
And being able to, hear what we're all saying and maybe move forward for the next conference to talk about that and then make a decision.
Good idea. Okay. Vice Mayor? I'm so used to calling you Vice Mayor.
I know, and I keep answering.
You can still do that. It's okay.
Can I?
Yes, it's okay. Thank you, Mayor, and former Vice Mayor and Commissioner Pam Beasley-Pittman. Thank you for the opportunity. So, a few things. I like the idea of a national search. I believe it is important. Mayor, I don't know. You seem to think we're going to be inundated, but I don't remember us being inundated when we did a national search for the city attorney. So maybe I don't share your concern about that inundation aspect. But I'm still willing to try that, and I'm still willing to see the response that we get from the nation. I agree with what I'm hearing in terms of there is no rush for this, but I do believe, in talking to staff, that this is a process that could easily take us till November or December if we do a national search with a firm. So
with an advisory committee.
Yes,
too.
yes, and I was going to get to that as well.
Yeah.
So I think the timing is good to begin because it will take us right up to that opportunity, and we make it very clearly known to anyone who's going to apply that this decision will happen most likely in December or January of 2025. So that people understand we need to get through our election, and I think it's only fair that the next 5 people that are sitting up here, or the same 5 people that are sitting up here, get to make that decision of who it is that they would like to work with as a city manager. So I'm all in favor of pushing it past that city election. And as I've been quoted in the paper, I don't think anyone in their right mind is going to apply thinking that this commission is going to decide for the next commission. So I don't think we have to worry about that. I like the idea of the citizen panel. I believe we had that for the city attorney's recently search. We had a citizen panel.
And we also had it for Mr. Feldman, too. Mr. Feldman, there was this.
Right.
Yeah, in fact, I think Commissioner Sturman was on.
I have Gretz's too. I remember I met Gretz's before he was announced.
Yeah,
also.
I think we've always had that.
Yeah.
And I know that we did even just have it recently for that city attorney search. So yeah, I think that's great. That extra added input and other sets of eyes. That makes sense to me as well. I'm not concerned in terms of if our interim is going to say they would like the job or not in the future. You know, I've seen this conversation play out so many times in the past, and people always say, oh, I'm not interested in the job. And then lo and behold, they change their mind, and there's a big controversy about it, and people are arguing, oh, well, you said you wouldn't want it if you were offered that. Or, anyway, I've seen that go crazy in the past. So many examples of people that say they wouldn't be interested in the position, and then all of a sudden they become interested. So that to me is not an important condition at all. But I do agree with Commissioner Beasley Pittman. I'm not in a rush today to make that decision. I think the people that she mentioned are all worthy of consideration, and maybe even more. I would like more time to just have that conversation. I believe that, and maybe we can get some clarification. So when the city manager gave us his notice, when did the 60-day clock start?
60 days ago.
Was that
He wants
no?
to go.
Was that the last commission meeting?
Well, at the rate that we produce, a day feels like 60 days.
Yeah.
But I certainly was planning 60 days from my announcement.
So that's like June 1st?
First.
Okay, that's not far away. So we're talking, 4 or 5 weeks. 5 weeks, right?
Okay.
5 weeks. So,
3 meetings.
Yes. So, we have time as a commission. We have a time May 7th. We even have time on May 21 to take advantage of that, knowing that things are still moving along until the city manager departs. So I'm fine with that. I certainly see the value of that transition period. I see the value of perhaps we do make a decision on the 7th, or I said even if we pushed it to the 21st, we still have all of this time. So I'm not concerned. I'm not in a rush. So I will agree with Commissioner Beasley Pittman that I don't think we need to announce an interim today. We haven't really had that discussion. And as Commissioner Beasley Pittman mentioned, we have several really good options. I think I've covered it.
Okay.
Thank you, Mayor.
Commissioner Sturman.
Disadvantage of being last, and I know we rotate the vote, but we don't rotate the comments. I'm always the last one up here, and I have to follow
you can benefit from the wisdom of your
the
colleagues.
brilliance of my colleagues. And I have to say, I too agree. There's no new innovative thought I could put forward because it's been all said. I have a few thoughts. Number one, the national search for sure. Maybe international. No, I'm not going to go that far. But I think, again, we could vet them on the back end. I think a national search, I think every one of us has put the same thought into this. We're coming to the same conclusion over and over again. Do as much as we can right now, tee it up, and nobody in their right mind would take this job on Halloween. They're going to wait till the election. So wait till get everything, all the ducks in the row, and maybe the final set of interviews after the November election to tee it up. I think it's a great idea having a citizen review. I was part of that with Gretz's. Going as far as national, we did tap from White Plains last time. A couple other thoughts. I agree. No, we've had a couple weeks to think about this. I've spoken to Greg a few times. By the way, Greg, where are you over there? Greg? Hello?
He left.
I'm still here.
Thank you for your service. I did speak to Greg several times. I did speak to who I think is the obvious choice is Susan Grant. Susan Grant and I have spoken several times also. I will say that she has clearly stated that she is not interested in the job full-time. And if she does, I wouldn't have an issue with that either, but just to let you know. Greg, for whatever reason, his departure, I won't go into this, but he's already looking into the future. He will do fantastic. But I think at this particular point, Greg, you're going to do fine. What are you looking at me like that for?
I haven't shared with you my future plans.
No. I'm saying
I just want to be clear.
Whatever you do in your future, you will be fine. I'm sure you will be fine. I don't know what you're going to do, but you will excel with whatever you do in the future. But no, I believe he's made the decision that he wants to move on. The issue with whether give him a check and leave or keep him for the 60 days, I think the 60-day period, keeping him here for the full time, but using his institutional knowledge, his contacts, personal relationships in the transition is absolutely valuable. So keep him for the whole time. But I do not think there's anything to be gained about waiting for an interim. I know Greg is looking forward to, I mean, unless I read you wrong, it's a transition, and there's no holdback in him transitioning to the advisory role, letting whoever we pick as the interim hit the ground running right now. There's nothing to be gained by waiting. I think Susan will be fantastic. She would be my number one choice. Mr. City Attorney, you can vote it up or vote it down tonight. I do ask that you put a resolution on tonight for appointing Susan. You know, we vote on it or not, but I do want you to at least put a resolution on as a walk-on.
Well, I don't think anybody is ready for that yet.
Well, Mr. Mayor,
Yeah.
fine, then we vote it down.
Actually, Mayor, I would agree with that. And I say that from having been staff.
Agree with what?
Agree with putting a reso on for tonight. And I say this again because, well, let's chat about it until we get there then.
Mm-hmm.
So, again, having been on the other side of the fence, putting together a budget, I was principal budget analyst for the city of Jacksonville. I can tell you that you need a guiding hand on all these decisions that are going to be made at every department level over the next 2 months. And it's a very
Doesn't she do that now? Isn't that her job now?
No,
we're not losing her talent.
No, because
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to hear John, please.
Because right now, Greg is the one who's making decisions on what goes into a budget that he's not going to be here when it gets adopted. It won't be his budget to administer, but he's putting it together. So unless he turns over complete authority to Susan, who we haven't named yet, how is he going to know who to direct? How is staff going to know who to respond to? You're putting so much uncertainty on the department heads and on the city manager and on the budget advisory board to craft a budget. A budget is the single most important document and action that we as an elected body take every single year. We need somebody to guide this process. And Greg, in his current role, respectfully, is not the right person to shepherd it through because he will be gone before it gets presented to the commission, but it'll have his imprint all over it. That makes no sense. It's a very ineffective way of trying to accomplish what it is we need to do. And so I think we absolutely have to have somebody in charge that every department head and everybody on staff can look to and know that person's in charge. That person is making decisions. That person is guiding the budget forward. I think it's critical. I can tell you from having put together budgets, it is imperative that we have somebody handling that process. And again, I think Greg would probably share with you that he feels the same way, that it's not his budget anymore to build. So,
well, wait. You're assuming that the commission is going to appoint Susan. And that has yet to be
whoever
determined.
you appoint.
Whomever.
And
I know,
we need to appoint somebody.
But your argument is based on the fact that you think that Susan's talents are best applied at the managerial role as opposed to her current assistant manager role, and that it precludes anyone else from being the manager when in fact we haven't even gotten to that point yet, and yet you want a resolution tonight to replace Greg immediately with somebody that you feel is suited towards the budgetary process, when in fact we haven't even decided if that's the person we want. And if your resolution is based on your wanting Susan Grant, then the resolution request falters because we haven't decided who we want to put in that role yet.
So we voted down tonight. Well, here's a couple other thoughts.
Why would you want to vote her down tonight? This is premature. We haven't had a chance to discuss this.
I haven't even talked with them.
I haven't had a chance to talk to the staff. I haven't had a chance to talk to my constituents. What is this urgency for tonight? I'm missing why there's this sense of urgency for tonight, as if we don't have people in place that can do their work. I'm missing this.
Let me give you my thoughts, and I see John wants to speak, but let me give you my thoughts. City likes certainty. City likes direction. The business community, the neighborhood community, uncertainty is not good for us. We've had a couple weeks to think about it. Every one of us has worked with every one of the assistant city managers. We know what the landscape is like. Each one of us probably has an idea of who we who we think would fill that role. Regardless of Greg's exit, even before that, we've had a working relationship with every one of them, and I think we have an idea of who we'd like to see in that role right now. We might not have, talked publicly because of sunshine, but each one of us has an idea. I think uncertainty.
First of all, that's a wrong assumption. I have not spoken with any of these folks.
Well, I have because I.
Well, good for you, and I'm glad that you took the effort to do it.
Because I think that the quicker that we do this, we could go forward. Budget is coming through, whether it's Susan or somebody. I think we should do this sooner rather than later. I think that it's something that we should be prepared to do, and I would like to have that resolution tonight. John, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I apologize.
No, that's okay. So and I appreciate Warren, I agree with you 100%. I think it would be fit and appropriate to address this tonight. To your point, we've known about this now for a while, but in the spirit of compromise, because I'm all about partnership and collaboration, can we at least commit to the next meeting? If we can't do this today, and I don't see why we can't, but if the rest of my colleagues don't think that it's appropriate to do this today, I don't want to drag this out and say, well, next meeting or the meeting after that. The closer we get to July 2nd, the more difficult this gets. So can we at least commit to the first meeting in May?
Could I hear what Pam has to say, the Commissioner?
Commissioner, what are your thoughts?
Like I said before, I didn't want to make a decision today, but I am leaning to the soon as possible, which would be the May 7th. Is that the meeting? That first meeting in May, to come back and move forward with a decision on who we would like to appoint as our interim city manager. So that's where I stand.
All right, so let me ask you this. If we make a decision at our next meeting as to whom we want to appoint, what are your thoughts about when that position should begin? Should it begin at the end of the 60-day notice, or should it begin immediately at the end of that meeting?
I believe we can go ahead, and I believe we can go ahead that night immediately, and then utilize that opportunity for Greg, if he's willing, to be a consultant, and use that formula, that idea that's been suggested.
So we would ask Greg if he would be willing to be a consultant during
It'll be 3 weeks, really. Like June 1 is when he said it's done. So that we're talking May 7th till June 1 to be a consultant.
Well, if he's willing to do that, we can discuss it at the next meeting.
Greg, you and I had spoken.
Wait, I'm talking. So if we could probably agree to make the decision at the next meeting, and in the meantime, we can ask Greg if he's interested in doing the consulting aspect. He may want to consult even beyond the end of the 60 days if we find it necessary. And we could make the decision on the interim city attorney that night, city manager that night. And that at least gives the staff time to prepare for that. To do it tonight makes no sense because staff needs to prepare for that change. So, and we haven't decided who we want that interim person to be either. So it gives us an opportunity to meet with each of the three people. Like there were 3 people that Pam mentioned, which I would like to speak with each one of them and see exactly where their thoughts are. I do agree that that interim person should not be eligible for the permanent position, and that they be able to go back to their position that they left from, and I think that's a better and more orderly approach to trying to make this transition. So does that make sense to everybody?
I'll respect the consensus. I mean, if that's the consensus, I'll respect what you guys.
Okay, let's do it that way then. All right, very good.
So are we asking Greg now if he's willing to be the consultant, or is that for a native?
You can ask him. Greg,
are you willing to be the consultant as needed?
Thank you for asking me. I'm gonna be very frank. I need to do certain things beyond this job here. I feel sometimes very unfair the time that I'm available to you all, and this city needs a lot of attention. It needs a lot of TLC. It needs follow-up. And I'm just letting you know that a consultant role is something that I would love to assist with, because that could give whoever you appoint the opportunity for me to just share knowledge. And I think as a consultant, they would also feel more comfortable with just leading and moving forward. I will tell you that I certainly appreciate your candor and how you'd like to proceed. Whatever the desire of the commission is, I'll be glad to follow up with. Between now and the next meeting, I am attending my family member on a daily basis. I do have to go outside of city limits, northbound, and that does limit certain time. But I will be here for some of the budget meetings. I may also put certain decisions on hold until that appointment is made.
Okay. So even in a part-time consulting capacity, you'd be available?
Absolutely. I have no plans.
Okay, Mr. City Manager, can I ask you a quick question?
Yes.
Okay, it's nobody's business what the personal issues are. That's not the question here. Please understand, I'm not asking that per se, but we have spoken a few times, and Greg, I consider you a friend, and we speak about things that I'm not going to discuss here, but we had discussed this particular issue earlier. And the question is it, for whatever you need to do, is it a strain on you to stay for 2 more weeks, or would it be better for you? And I know we spoke about leaving now. For you.
Are we talking past June? I'm not understanding when the weeks are.
We're talking past May 7th.
No.
Oh, well, he's already told us June 1, hasn't he?
No, Greg, would it be a hardship for you to stay until May, or would you prefer transferring?
I can certainly give the 2 weeks of being while you all formulate your thoughts for appointment. However, I will tell you that there are certain specific decisions that need to be made in order to make sure that the operations continue resiliently. I'll tell you right now, I've held off on a couple of things this past week that are just, being pending on what this outcome will be. And I did not want to commit to those decisions just because I again, some of you approached me that you wanted to make an appointment today. So I am flexible, however the commission desires to move forward. But I think there's key decisions that need to be committed to. And my philosophy is sometimes different. I'll tell you that we were talking the other day about how we were going to support the police department. I have a certain philosophy. Other colleagues of mine have different philosophies. And however, my philosophy is from experience. I worked at a police department. I worked for a chief. I was a city manager before this. And so that's where my decisions come in. So I have a different philosophy. And so I mean, decisions like that are going to need to be made. I'll just put those on hold until you all make a decision.
Well, thank you for your candor, Greg.
All right, so why don't we agree then that we'll make the choice for interim city manager on May 7th at our next meeting, and that and if Greg agrees to be a full or part-time consultant, we can come to terms at that point, and then in the meantime direct staff to begin the search, a nationwide search, right?
So with that, Mayor, just so I can clarify that, I don't want staff to begin a nationwide search. I want us to bring on a firm to conduct a nationwide search. No, it's not the same thing. So we need to direct staff to hire somebody to do this, because you made a comment before, and I think, and not a criticism, Mayor, but that staff is going to be inundated with resumes. They're not. The search firm is going to be inundated with resumes. Staff should hopefully only have to deal with 10 to 20 at most. So I just want to get that across. We need to start the procurement process to hire the search firm.
So you're going to go ahead and hire the search firm and begin the nationwide search, and then we can begin going from there. I think we've all agreed on that tonight.
And with respect to the Citizens Committee, how do we want to constitute
Well, how do you want to constitute that? So
let's do it the way we did the attorney committee.
Which was what?
Didn't we all appointed people.
Yeah, but there has to be attorney. But there has to be, the city attorney was different because as it's been pointed out, perhaps we want to have representatives from different sectors of our community that are representative of our community. So why don't you come back with your recommendations at the next meeting, and then we can decide how to constitute it. But I agree that we have a very diverse community, so I think diversity is important on this advisory board.
Right, and I agree, Mayor. I think the search committee should not be a we each get a vote kind of thing. I think it should be our stakeholders, and let's make them consensus appointments of each of the stakeholder categories, rather than, I want to pick somebody and you want to. I don't think that reflects.
So why don't we
the
come
community.
back making recommendations, and then we'll try to figure it out from there. Okay, fine.
Mayor, we could do it just like reimagining City Hall now, reimagining City Manager.
Yeah.
I have a question for you. So when we're doing May 7th as the selection for the interim, is that interim person going to actually take that role that night, or are we moving it till June 1 when the city manager?
I think we want to do it that night.
Yeah. Okay, I just wanted some clarification.
Yeah.
So the appointment will be made that day, and that will take effect that evening. Okay, thank you so much. So this will be will this be a conference agenda item and a nighttime agenda item, or will it be just nighttime agenda on May 7th?
I think it should probably be a conference item so we can discuss it, because as we already hear, we don't really have a consensus right now. I think it would behoove us to have a robust conversation as a conference item, come to a consensus on who our choice is, and then we could have the city attorney can prepare a reso that we can adopt that night and just leave the name blank.
Okay, I'm good with that. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Just one clarification
Yes,
before we end. Commissioner Herbst had mentioned allowing City Manager Chavarria to run out vacation and sick time. At what point was that your intent? When would that start? And is the rest of the
I think
commission
that's
okay
kind of
with it?
moot now because we decided to end his tenure with us on May 7th.
But if I may, no. So I'd like to still look at that. So under his contract, he will be paid out for his sick and vacation leave. What I'm proposing is that rather than simply write him a check, we allow him to stay on payroll, allow him to use family sick because he's dealing with a sick family member. So we allow him to use family sick for that and allow him to use his accumulated leave time. And again, during that whole period of time, he will not be in the office. He will be at home, available for consulting and knowledge transfer. So that would begin at such time as we make a decision at the next meeting. So he's got 60 days under his contract. He has vacation leave and sick leave. My proposal, and we can vote on this at the next one, is that we simply allow him to run his time out.
But wait a minute, if he's working for us as a consultant, he's
not. No, Mayor. So I'm using the term consulting in that he's available for discussions. He's not a consultant. He's got 60 days of still on payroll as, in an inactive. So what we do is we move him to inactive status.
I get that,
Right.
but he's still on the payroll.
Right.
He's not using up vacation.
Right.
He's on the payroll.
Right. And my proposal is that at the end of that 60 days, we allow him then to run out his personal leave time. After the 60 days is over.
But he won't be performing any services.
He'll still be available if Mr. Chavarria is amenable to it while he is on vacation, just like when he's on vacation now and I call him up, he answers the phone. He'll be on vacation, I call him up, he'll answer the phone.
I understand what you're saying, but he would be compensated for that. He wouldn't be using up vacation pay to perform services for the city. He would have to be compensated for that.
He will be compensated because he's on vacation, and he'll still pick up the phone when somebody calls to ask him a question.
And I guess he would still get benefits.
Well,
during
Jerome,
that
what
time,
would the
too.
normal
That's
course
correct.
of action be in a situation like this if he leaves on June 1? What would the normal course of action be with personal and sick days?
They would be paid out in a lump sum.
So why would that be different now?
I think the mayor said how we could keep him on longer, mechanisms to keep him on longer.
He doesn't want to be on
He doesn't want to be.
Well,
on
then it's his call. It would be
It's his call.
It's his call.
Yeah, I don't understand why we would deviate from what you would normally do. If you just said he would get paid a lump sum, that's great. I don't understand why we're trying to get into the weeds on this.
Well, it's preferential to both of us. So the lump sum payout for vacation leave is 75%. So he takes a haircut if he leaves and takes a check when he goes. If we keep him around, he gets the full 100%, and we have the availability of him as a resource. So we benefit, and he benefits.
Okay, I just thought he said he didn't want to be around, could not be around, didn't even make decisions this week to be around, so now we want him around. I'm a little confused, but I'm going to leave this up to all of you.
No, I'm
okay?
going to leave it.
Leave it up to Greg.
Option,
Leave it up to
the
Greg.
option of Greg.
If you allow me, I'll work with the city attorney, come with certain proposals. I would highly recommend if there's someone on staff that you feel can fulfill the role, please reach out to them. Schedule time through your assistants. They'll be available to talk to you, to let you know about their leadership philosophy and what they intend to do and how they can help. And you all can then make that decision at the next city commission meeting.
I need us to circle back around to one other.
Sure, go right ahead. Go right ahead.
The Citizen Appointment Board.
The Advisory Board?
Advisory Board. It was said that we can come back with suggestions and recommendations for individuals. How many are we talking about?
Well, I don't know how many were on the last one. Warren, how many were on the last one that you were on? Was there 10 or was there?
It seemed like about a dozen or so. It's been a
So
while
say
ago.
Because I'm thinking back, I was on one for when we did it for when we were searching for a police chief.
Okay.
And that one seemed to have more than 12 because there was a rotating process where the candidate went from like room to room, and there's like 4 rooms. And the room that I was in, I know had at least 8 stakeholders.
So why don't we just say two per member of the commission, which is 10, and there'll be consensus appointments, and try to recommend somebody that represents an aspect of our community, and hopefully we can agree on the 10.
Okay.
Anything else?
That's it, sir.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do you folks want to take a break, or you want to just launch into commission reports?
Finish it up.
Okay. You're first then.
Thank you. So just a couple of things that I want to bring to Commission and the community's attention. So we had our first mediation session on Lockhart Park. Went well. We're having an open and frank discussion, and we will be having more meetings. Obviously, since we're in mediation, I can't disclose any of the things that we've discussed, but just to let you know that we are meeting, and again, I'm optimistic, as always, that we will come to some sort of a conclusion that is to the benefit of all parties. Next item that I want to bring to your attention is that I met with Cabot Edward, and we were able to reach an agreement on the park, and there has been an LOI that was presented by the city to him, which he has signed, and should be coming back for us to take a look at. It's consistent with what we talked about when we were here, along with the appraisal that he had gotten for $1.74 million. Again, so that will require a supermajority vote, and we'll have an opportunity to discuss that more in depth, but I just wanted to let everybody know that, that we reached agreement on that. And then the last thing is we had a selection committee for a disaster contract, one of the pre-placement disaster agreements that we have. And I just want to know when that's coming forward, because hurricane season is here. And I want to make sure that this doesn't get delayed. I want somebody on board as quickly as possible as we start looking at storm season. So
Greg,
if we could just get an update on that.
Greg, when do you plan to bring that
We expect
forward?
to bring that May 7th.
Great. Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Okay.
And that's it. Thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Beasley Pittman.
Yes.
Yeah, I know. I had to stop for a second.
My colleague said he had a few things. I have several things I'd like to share tonight. As far as meetings and events that I was privileged to be a part of, on Wednesday, April the 3rd through the 5th, I actually traveled to Orlando to be a participant in the FBC LEO annual conference, which was amazing. Gave a lot of insight and opportunity for growth, and I am in the growing field, so thank you for being able to attend that particular conference. Also, on September 6th, I was a guest speaker who addressed about
What month? What you said September?
April? Did I say
April.
September?
I thought
Am
you
I
said-
going?
I thought
Am
you
I
said
already
September.
on vacation?
Yeah.
Okay. Saturday, April 6th, I was able to address about 20 youth. I was the guest speaker for an organization called Bright Lights Crossing Borders. The organization helps and encourage abused and neglected, abandoned, and orphaned youth. Also dealing with individuals and families who have suffered loss due to national disasters and fires and from the pandemic as well. That was a great opportunity. I was so grateful to be considered for that particular event. Also on Monday, April the 8th, I want to thank our TAM, Transportation and Mobility, Ben Rogers, also, I'm sorry, the other young lady that attended the meeting with us. I don't have her name here, but they came out to help us have a conversation with District 3, one of the communities on the north end of our district. We met at Bass Park, and the conversation was about how the city is, that's part of the city is actually disconnected from the shuttle services. So we talked about how going back to the county transportation and what it would take to get that part of the district to be able to participate and being offered that particular service. And that area, the Rock Island, Lake Air, also Golden Heights area, there's approximately 2,300 people that live in that area, and that particular service would be a great asset for them. So we talked, like I said, in detail about the community shuttle program. Okay, on Tuesday, April the 9th, I had the opportunity to speak with, no, we're not going to talk about April 9th. Moving on. We're going to talk about April the 10th. I had a Zoom meeting with Good Jobs, Great Cities Academy. If you recall, that is one of the opportunities that we have been afforded through our federal government with the Department of Labor. Great conversation with the other 15 cities that are part of this academy, giving us opportunity to discuss what some of the other cities are doing to ensure the opportunity to introduce and provide jobs, skills type jobs, and what those cities are doing. Also, on April 10th, I had a great conversation with our Parks and Recs. We talked about the bond opportunity for Carter Park and Bass Park. Also, on the same day, I had a conversation, Mayor and we attended the ribbon cutting for the Fred DeLuca Teen Center at the Nan Knox Boys and Girls Club, which was an awesome opportunity. The facility at the Boys Club is amazing. They do great things there, and the facility is going to meet the dreams and the desires of so many youth in our area and in the city overall, because this is an opportunity for anyone. It's not just for those who live in District 3. Also, on Friday the 12th, I attended the retirement ceremony for Assistant Fire Chief Stephen Shaw. If we are not aware, he has retired and he will be moving on to the city of Jupiter. So that was a great event to be there and witness his colleagues and members of the city to acknowledge the great service he had and provided for our city for over 25 years. Also, I met with Chief Schultz and staff to discuss some issues in District 3. On Friday the 12th as well, we enjoyed at Riverland Park Friday night musicals in the park, which was well attended. On Monday the 15th, I did have my pre-agenda meeting at Riverland Park in the gym. It was a great turnout, great opportunity. I want to share with everyone with some upcoming events within District 3 on Thursday the 18th from 4 to 6:30 p.m. The Sprouts Bus, the mobile market, will be back in the district. They will be located directly across from Lincoln Park, and that address is 544 Northwest 19th Avenue. Currently, this is occurring every third Thursday throughout the month of June. And again, this is a great opportunity for us to fill in a gap where we have the food insecurities. They come out, Sprouts must come out. They have fresh fruits, fresh vegetables, some other grains and other items that that can be purchased. And I get so excited to let everyone know that the price range is from $1 to $5. There's nothing on the bus that's more than $5. So this definitely fills a gap for that area where we have a food insecurity. Also on Friday the 19th is Carter Park Jam in the Park. We invite everyone to come out and have a good time. From 7 to 10, you're able to bring your lawn chairs, your coolers, come out and have a great time. The band that is performing this time, I believe, is Larry Dog and Band, something to that effect, if I'm messing up the name. Larry Dog and the Band. Yes, all right. Carl is giving me the nod. That's the correct word. Okay, correct title. Also reminding all of our neighbors that on April the 20th, it is the Reimagine City Hall meeting. This is workshop number 5. The time is 9 a.m. and we will be at Holiday Park in the Social Center, inviting us all to come out and be a part of that conversation. And we are encouraging everyone to come out and be a part of this, and also encourage anyone that you know that our younger generations, the millennials, Generational Z, even Generational Alpha, invite them to be a part of this conversation. Because what we do know, when we look around this room, those generations will use and utilize the new City Hall more than we will. And we want this building to be prepared and be sustainable for the next 60 years. So their input is very valuable. Also, on Tuesday the 23rd, at the L.A. Lee YMCA Mizell Community Center, the Shaping the Future of Safety in Fort Lauderdale will be meeting will be held on that particular day. And also, to add to this conversation pertaining to the shaping of the future for the safety, the meeting was rescheduled because there was as the district commissioner, I was not advised of the meeting. The meeting was scheduled for Monday, and that was the same time as my pre-agenda meeting. And this meeting is so important. I often say anything that's going on in my district, I need to know about it so we can be a part of it and support it. And then with that date, it also split the community as to where they would go to participate. And then I found out that they were not notified that it had been postponed. So we still had people who went in 2 directions. So I know we addressed that, and it's just a reminder to all of us that we need to make sure that we're on one accord and we are addressing opportunities where it is valuable and accessible to all. Movie studio groundbreaking, yes, Wednesday, April 24th, 1 p.m., 1400 Northwest 31st Avenue. This is a project that has been in the works, conversation before I took the oath, and I'm really excited about what's coming to the district, to the city, and I'm hoping to see many of you at that groundbreaking, because this is an opportunity that would financially impact the city and the district at 1 p.m. Yes.
I think that if things go according to their business plan, it's going to be transformational for the city of Fort Lauderdale.
Yes, it will.
And especially for District 3, especially since many of the jobs can be sourced from the neighborhood. But I don't want to interrupt that, but I feel the same way you do as far as the opportunity, and I hope everyone can be there.
Great opportunity, and also to continue with what we're saying, the connection and the partnership with the high school, with Dillard High School, to be able to begin to work with students there to introduce them also to a new craft, a new skill, a new career. So I'm really excited about it. Over the moon, excited. Listen to me, okay? Thursday, April 25th through Sunday the 28th, Dillard Museum is celebrating their centennial. This is not only the museum, this covers Dillard High School, been in existence for 100 years. And there is a celebration that has been planned, and everyone is looking forward to it. And this is my personal invitation to each and every one of you here, and whoever can hear my voice, come on out and enjoy this event. Learn some more history about who has actually graduated from Dillard, what input has been given through our city, through graduates of this Dillard High School. Okay? One last item. I have been getting, you know, when you're out and about and people come up and address you with certain situations, I have been getting these random, I call them little, hey, do you know? And there has been conversation that there is a issue in our public works department, and it's dealing with discrimination, it's dealing with harassment, it's dealing with issues where we have individuals who are very frustrated with the way that the department is being ran. I'm going to place that there, but something needs to be investigated. Something needs to be addressed. I don't know if it's EEO, but someone needs to connect with employees of Public Works to find out what's going on. And when I tell you it's not one person, and I go out in my community, so people, wherever they see me, it's different people, and they are saying this to me, and I can't sit on it. I know my scope of what I'm able to do, but I want to bring this forward. So whatever this is, the city at whatever level address it. Because what's being said to me, the goal is to file a lawsuit against the city.
Can I ask that you have a private meeting with the city manager to go over what it is that you're hearing so that he can address that?
Definitely.
Okay.
Definitely.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you.
But like I said, it's two, one person,
right. But more
3
than one.
people.
Yeah.
But I'm at a point wherever I go, I'm being tugged.
Okay.
Okay. And that concludes what I would like to share today.
Okay,
Thank
thank
you.
Could I comment on that
Sure,
real
go
quick?
ahead.
Yeah, I've heard some rumblings too, so I join your concern. I keep calling you Vice Mayor, City Commissioner. My Vice Mayor is to my left, Commissioner Pam. Thanks.
Okay.
If I may. So we did receive a concern from your assistant, Commissioner Sturman, from Jerry Pryor, that went to the city attorney to know more about this. I have Ms. Susan Grant that can give you a general understanding about this investigation. I'll tell you that I am very concerned. We are all very concerned. But I want you all to realize that we follow process. In order for us to be effective, we need to make sure that we follow process, and Ms. Susan Grant can give some general understanding as to when this will be available and our determination, if you can.
Absolutely. Susan Grant, Assistant City Manager. As Greg mentioned,
Wait. I do want a point of information. This had nothing to do with Jerry. I had several people in the community. You might have.
It did not. No, I'm just saying what we received.
She conveyed
through the attorney.
No, but it was conveyed to me totally. I didn't know that she was even involved. But this is from my community itself, so it's not okay. But just want to clarify that. Go ahead, Susan. Sorry.
Okay.
So we received initially some multiple complaints from folks in Public Works dating back to the latter part of last year. They were extensive, and we were having a transition in the Office of Professional Standards. So we've actually outsourced the investigation to an outside attorney, and actually the last interview that he will be conducting is next, I think the 24th, so that's next. I don't have a calendar in front of me. They've been doing the report, so we expect the report the latter part of next week. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Vice Mayor?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Wednesday, April 3rd, had the pleasure of attending a reception at the Tower Club that was sponsored by the Greater Fort Lauderdale Sister Cities. in honor of El Al Airlines beginning service, which actually began yesterday, nonstop from Fort Lauderdale to Tel Aviv. Very nice reception with all of the folks that were in attendance to celebrate that arrival. That's a good addition for our airport. That night, spoke at the Victoria Park Civic Association meeting, and I do want to congratulate the brand new board of directors at Victoria Park, and to thank the retiring board, led by Steffi Pascal, the past president, very engaged group, and just wanted to wish all the best to the new board, and of course thank staff for attending that night as well to give those updates. Thursday, April 4th, the Fort. We had a groundbreaking for the Fort in Snyder Park. Very well attended, I'd say, by over 100 people. Very upbeat and a really nice gathering. We heard from a lot of important people in the world of pickleball, including the #1 men's player in the world.
Really? I thought that was you.
Well, I challenged him actually to a game.
Did you?
And he told me he'd get back to me. So we'll see how that goes. But I did enjoy the day. It was really good. And he actually lives in I think he said he lives in Palm Beach Gardens, as a matter of fact.
Really?
Yeah, about 7 feet tall, and I could see why he might be the #1 player. Anyway, that was a good event. Monday, April 8th, had the opportunity to speak at the Central City Alliance. That's a really interesting organization because it's comprised of all of the neighborhood associations along the 13th Street corridor. So you've got South Middle River, Middle River Terrace, Lake Ridge, and Poinsettia Heights. Poinsettia Heights used to be in District 2. It's now in District 1, but they're still a part of that Central City Alliance. Wednesday, April 10th, I spoke at the Sailboat Bend Civic Association meeting. That was also a really good meeting. A lot of issues, concerns for our only historically designated residential neighborhood in the city of Fort Lauderdale. A lot of new things coming there. Obviously, the new police headquarters is right on the edge of the boundaries of that neighborhood, and other projects are coming down the pike. So we had a good discussion that night of all of the issues that affect that neighborhood. Thursday, April 11th, had the opportunity and the pleasure to speak at the annual meeting of the Birch Park Beach HOA. Those are those little finger streets that are just south of 19th Street off of A1A that run up to Bonnet House. I'm sorry, not Bonnet House, Birch State Park, and just a little bit north of Sunrise Boulevard. They had an excellent meeting at their annual meeting, and it was always a pleasure to be with them as well. Friday, April 12th, I really want to thank staff. It was a late in the day meeting, started at 5 o'clock at George English Park Community Center, where we dealt with some issues of discussion for some of the aisles, some of the streets actually in the Las Olas Isles Civic Association, dealing with Mola Avenue and Isle of Capri. I want to thank staff for taking the time to be there. There was some people wanted us to use some Parks Bond money to purchase some land. Others did not, and we worked that out. But most importantly, I do want to say thank you to staff for being there from 5 o'clock to 7 o'clock on Friday evening, this past Friday. Greatly appreciated. Coming up, as I mentioned, actually yesterday was the official launch of El Al Airlines, Fort Lauderdale Airport to Tel Aviv and back. Tomorrow, I will look forward to attending the police promotional ceremony at the Four Seasons Hotel on the beach. And Thursday, April 18th, our third and final public workshop for the Sunrise Lane redesign. This has been something that's been in the works and talked about for a long, long time. So thank you to Transportation and Mobility for that. Great neighborhood input over the first two sessions. Tomorrow we will see what the consensus is from the neighborhood and also the design team to move forward with making that really cool little area of the beach something that I've always considered a little bit of like a little Greenwich Village area of the beach, to make it a little special, a little bit more special. It's not going to take that much TLC to make that a really cool little area. So I look forward to that on Thursday, the 18th. Friday, April 19th, is the annual ArtServe Impact Awards. ArtServe is a great arts incubator on Sunrise Boulevard, and I look forward to that awards ceremony that evening. Saturday, April 20th, Riverwalk, Smoke on the Water Barbecue Feast. That's from noon to 4, again, on Saturday, April 20th. Coming up also on May 7th, I guess that's the same day as our next commission meeting, I think we have a really cool event. We have a time capsule unveiling. Before, I guess, City Hall is demolished, I think we're opening up a time capsule from City Hall. What year that is, I'm not sure. Was that time capsule 1960? 60-something? Anyway, so we look forward to that event as well.
What time is that?
What
in the
time
morning,
is
I assume?
that?
In the morning?
Is it right before the commission meeting that day? 12:30? May 7th, the same day as our commission meeting. Yes. Yes. We got that. So that'll be right before our commission meeting, and we'll see what was in that time capsule.
We have a 11:30 that day, or?
No, I think this is around 11:30 or noon.
Potentially, that may be the only date available for the joint meeting with the Charter Review Board. Potentially.
Potentially. No. What about May 21?
Yeah, we were looking at May 21st.
Oh, you are? Okay.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Perfect. Well, then we'll be able to do that, and we'll unveil the Charter Revision Board as well as the time capsule. That'll
It's going to be
great.
like a Geraldo Rivera kind of thing?
I think so. Yeah, hold your hats. Hold on to your hats. Hold on to your hats. It's going to be interesting to see what was in that time capsule. Comments. District 2 had a crazy weekend last week. I mean, from the 5th, after spring break, we had Tortuga, Cirque du Soleil pop up at the La Sola Oceanside Park. We had the Iceplex Community Festival on April 6th. And then also, Mayor, I saw you on top of the High Dive Tower for the High Dive competition on April 6th as well. Just a couple of comments for the city manager, some questions. This past weekend, a lot of comments, emails about what I could only consider to be a real traffic mess on Seabreeze. So a lot of this had to do with the triathlon, but also a lot of it had to do with all of the construction in and around D.C. Alexander Park, which is really coming along. But it was just such a bottleneck, such a standstill because of the lane closures. The ingress and the egress was really difficult. I think that we're going to have to really work on issues like this, communicate more with the neighborhoods, because there was just so much blocking of roads. I don't know about the MOT, but it just didn't seem to really work. But it was really at a standstill all weekend. So we need to, I think, just do a better job on that and communicating with the neighborhood and the city for anyone that's thinking of even venturing over the bridges to the barrier island. I also wanted to mention, I'm getting a lot of questions. At some point in time, I'd like to know what the game plan is with these rocks on medians on A1A. They're rather huge. I'm getting a lot of people concerned about the hazard of it, the safety of it. They're in the medians replacing a lot of the landscaping that was there. I don't know how extensive this is. Is it just going to be in those two areas that are now, just north of Bahia Mar by the restaurant at that triangle, and also across from the Natchez site where we have the temporary parking lot next across the street from Trulux? But I just want to know how extensive this plan is, because more and more people are starting to send me photos of it, and these are really rather large.
I think they look nice.
Oh, you're entitled to your opinion.
Okay.
But I'm getting a lot of people are really questioning about it, and what's the plan?
Yes, sir. So, Carl Williams, Parks and Recreation Director. So the plan is that, as you know, when we had the inclement weather, we had some challenges, and it's taken us quite a bit of time to kind of renovate the areas. And
that's because of the sand blowing into the median,
yes,
and overwhelming the plantings that were there, and your ability to try to take out all that sand and the efforts that it becomes difficult, especially after a major storm.
That's correct.
Okay.
And so the plan is, to your question, is we are doing every other median. We're going to be putting in some shrubbery, some greenery in there as well. But some of the areas where sand really has an impact from the beach onto the street, onto the medians, we're using that to help us do it in a low-cost way. It'll actually save us money in the long term to do it. And so we were looking at cost-effective way to do that, and that's the plan that we have.
For the starting, well, is this going to be starting just north of Bahia Mall, where it is now, by the restaurant, by that, by the parking lot, South Beach? Well, now it's called. Well, it's not called South Beach. Is it called South Beach now?
The restroom.
Yeah, no, the rather large parking lot across from Bahia Mall. Is it called South Beach lot? I think so. So I see them there, and I see them all the way up by the old Natchez site, which is now the temporary parking lot across from Truoaks. So are those the only two places, or is it going to connect all the way down from north to south?
Right, so it'll go from south, where the restrooms are, all the way to Sunrise. And so, but there's a couple places in there that we're not going to be able to do every other median, which will be consistent with the shrubbery that we have in the area. But it's to cover from the south all the way to Sunrise.
Okay, so, but you said maybe intermittently or every other.
Every other, yeah.
Every other. Okay, so, all right, just because I'm getting a lot of questions about it.
Yeah, and
how are they fastened? I mean, they're rather large. People are concerned that they fall into the street, or, believe it or not, this is even going to be an article in the Sun Sentinel. I can't believe it. It was a slow news day, but people are writing about it on social media. There's a group from Lauderdale by the Sea thinking that people are going to have a few drinks and take the rocks and throw the rocks, and there's all these. I'm telling you.
Well, okay. I will look into that.
Yeah.
I have
How are
not
they fastened?
heard of that. So essentially, the median itself is covered with a material, a tarp, and then the rocks are placed on top. And we've got the larger ones so that they're a little bit more sturdier. I haven't heard of anybody grabbing them and throwing them, but
So they're not fastened anyway. They're just sitting on top of each other. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Again, there's just a concern out there about safety, about hazards, about. I guess we'll have to just monitor the situation. But it sounds like that's. Do we have a plan that maybe you could just send to the office and we can look at it?
Absolutely, I have it. I can share it with you.
I really appreciate that, just so we could see and share with people that are expressing concern.
Will do.
Thank you. And then my last comment, City Manager, I have been getting complaints about when we meet here that folks are not allowed to bring any kind of beverage or food into the auditorium. And I understand that rule, but we do have people that for medical reasons do need to have a drink, or they need, for whatever medical condition. How do we deal with that so that we're not violating, any kind of ADA issue, or that we're also able to accommodate people that have a medical need to have a drink with them?
You actually bring out a very good point and a legal requirement. So we are going to dialogue with the NSU administrative staff and see if we could designate an area, because if the concern is to make sure that we don't, spill food on the floor, we want to designate an area for that, for individuals that need to have food so that they can enjoy the meeting and enjoy their food.
Okay, I just want to make sure, because I do think it's a concern, it's an issue. So thank you for that, and thank you, Mayor. That's it from me.
Very good.
Thank you.
Commissioner Sturman.
Thank you. I have 5 items, just so you can keep track. Number one, and I'm going to say this, and then I'm going to jump right quick to the city attorney and the city clerk. I do want to thank you, Mr. Mayor, for joining us in District 4 on May 11th. It was May 11th.
Wait, May 11th hasn't happened yet.
April 11th. Okay. April 11th. May 11th is my kid. Greg, I'm going to talk about you for a minute, so you could. So, no. You could. Okay. Okay. So on April 11th, I do want to thank you for joining us in the District 4. Just so my constituents and everybody that was in the room realizes, due to sunshine rules, I'm not allowed to speak. I did speak to both city attorneys. I spoke to the city clerk, and they advised me I was allowed to go, but I couldn't say anything, and I couldn't speak publicly until today. But after today, now that I acknowledge it, I can answer questions. Is that right, Tom? Okay, so now that I've spoken about it, I can. But I want to thank you for your presentation. I believe that in May, didn't they say that the tunnel is going to be open?
The end of May.
This May?
Yeah.
That the tunnel, not the train tunnel.
All
the car
four
tunnel.
lanes, all 4 lanes. I was going to get into that.
Yeah, they did say that in May. Oh, I didn't want to take it. See, how does that feel not going last? Okay, so I'll let you go into more detail about that. But talking about the traffic, the bypass road, all the things, I do appreciate you coming to District 4 and updating us. I do apologize for not being able to talk, but by sunshine, I did want to participate. Number two is we did have a public a town hall on dogs in the park. Commissioner Herbst had mentioned opening up the dogs so citizens could bring their dogs into the park. We had a three-tier presentation, and that was very, very well received. I want to thank Mr. Williams for joining us, and I think it's going to be coming up in May, and we'll go into details about the consensus in the neighborhood, but I think it's something that everybody would appreciate. I won't go into detail here, but allowing dogs and people to coexist, there is compromises that I think everybody would like. Number three, this does happen to be, this past week was the anniversary of April 12th of 2023, the big flood, and I want to thank everybody who did help with the recovery and the relief effort, and thank you and acknowledge everybody in my districts that did have to suffer through that, and thank you for standing together. Next item, we are going to be having a Hurricane Expo sometime in the month of May. Oh, June 1st, that's the date, with the fire department. We do that. We've been doing that for years in my neighborhood. And now District 4 will continue with this. Will be our second annual Hurricane Expo, getting ready for hurricane season. And the last thing, Greg, you're back in your seat now, right? Would you want to stand up just for 1 second and take a wave? Just to say hello. Greg, thank you. You could sit down if you'd like. Okay. Greg, I know it's a little premature. You're still here, but I just wanted to say a couple things. First of all, it's been a pleasure working with you. I want to thank you for your service to the city. You love the city. Your enthusiasm, team spirit come through. As a fellow engineer, we both see things from the same perspective. I think we've clicked from day one. You've helped me be an effective commissioner. You've given me the resources I need to do my job. Let's look at a couple of things that you've accomplished while you've been here. Police contracts, been out of contract for a year. We closed that. Fire contract, about 2 years, we closed that. Water treatment plant, one of the biggest infrastructure deals in the city, adding that, more than doubling our stormwater with flooding. And again, the April response, how many people did we rescue that day?
More than 600.
And how many fatalities?
0.
I mean, and the commitment responding to our citizens, I thank you for that. I respect whatever decision that you make going forward. I know you have priorities that you have to set, but I think I'm going to verbalize what I said earlier, maybe a little bit better. Whatever you do, you will do well, and you will do well in your future. I want to thank you for your service and the dedication to my city. Greg, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Wow, that sounds like a great performance review. It's great.
Well, okay, Mr. Mayor, I will. That was great. I'll leave it up to you now.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner. So let me just touch upon a few things that have not been discussed. First of all, one thing that Commissioner Glassman talked about was the inaugural flight of El Al Airlines between Fort Lauderdale and Tel Aviv. I think that's an important game-changing announcement, as well as the fact that they began service yesterday. We all know how volatile the situation is in Israel, and we're very appreciative that the airline continues to maintain service between our city and Tel Aviv. That's important because it continues to describe Fort Lauderdale as a hub of international tourism, and we'd like to continue to think that we are a welcome home to people from all over the world. And this once again signifies how Fort Lauderdale is it's an open door to everyone, regardless of where you come from. So thank you, El Al, for your commitment to Fort Lauderdale and to the community at large. I took a day off the next day and jumped up to the White House. I was invited to attend a reception at the White House for Greek Independence Day, so got to see all my colleagues in the community from throughout the country, and it was great that the White House recognizes Greek Independence Day as an annual event. I think it started in under President Reagan, and has continued to be a reception ever since. April 6th, I grudgingly but heroically managed to get through the Mayor's Chess Challenge.
Did that fifth grader win again?
Well, this was a 7-year-old.
Did he beat you again?
No.
Every year. Oh, my God.
I'm not going to tell you the results, but it was a 7-year-old and a 10-year-old.
It's smarter than a third grader. Always lose.
Next, that morning, I rushed over to the Aquatic Center. We had the inaugural high dive event. It was great. Kids from throughout the country participated in the high dive event, which is where I met another challenge. I finally went up to the 27-meter platform. Since it wasn't too breezy, it was kind of perfect day to go up there. You can see a lot from up there.
Did you jump?
No.
Oh, okay.
I didn't jump. And it's dangerous to jump from there. You have to really know what you're doing. The only concern I have about this, and Carl, this is something that I would love for you to remember. We need to start publicizing the events more. If there were 50 people there, other than the divers, that was a lot. There should have been 500 people there. And people from the neighborhood, like at the Venetian, there was a fellow there who I knew, and he just happened to be walking by, which is why he joined the event. But we really, really need to start pushing those events throughout the community and throughout the area. So just to let you know, it was a great event, but it would have been best if more people were there to enjoy and appreciate the facility that we put there. On the next day, I went to Bonnet House, where they had the annual International Orchid and Garden Festival. Dozens of vendors and participants who were there. There was a beautiful brunch there. Just a wonderful community that's part of the orchid community, and it was a great addition to the city of Fort Lauderdale. On the 10th, I participated in the Princess Charlene Foundation Water Safety Program. This was an event, as you may recall, the Prince and Princess of Monaco came here a while back, and as part of their visit, it was their request that we do more work to help young kids understand the enjoyment and safety of water sports, and there were dozens and dozens of young kids who came and participated in this event. So it was a great opportunity for kids to appreciate the facility that we built. So to Commissioner Beasley Pittman's point, the things that we build today are for the kids of the future, and so I was very proud to see that this facility that we have built is going to be appreciated for generations to come. Also on the next day, April 11th, I did join Commissioner Beasley Pittman at the Boys and Girls Club, but I also attended the Street Art Regatta, which was at the Birch Park, and Claire Vickery organized an event where young kids participate in a sailing competition. It was really great. A lot of parents out there, a lot of kids, and it was it was a gorgeous day, and it's a perfect day for something like that. And then the next evening, April 12th, we hosted a town hall in District 4 at the St. Sebastian Church. Standing room only. A couple of hundred people showed up. The reason why I wanted to do this town hall was because my office continues to get requests of information. What's going on over there? What's going on with development? Tell us a little bit about traffic. What are the plans? So as a result, we organized an event where we had the district secretary, Steve Braun from FDOT attend. We had a gentleman from the county who is in charge of public works, who's also in charge of light signalization and signage. He attended. We also had members of our city staff. Chris, where's Chris? There. Thanks, Chris, for being up there, being at the event. And we had, it was really a great opportunity to hear the people, their concerns, and to try to provide answers to them. So one of the big concerns, of course, was when is the tunnel going to be finished? And Steve Braun said in front of all that crowd, it's going to be done the end of May. So we're going to, this May. Yeah, the lady said 2024, and he said yes, 2024. So we've got our fingers crossed, and hopefully all 4 lanes will be open then. And he said they're working very, very hard. I said, well, you know, the consensus is they never see anybody there. And he said, well, they work late at night, so probably past my bedtime, so I don't really see them. But in any case, light signalization was also a very important topic. Traveling down 17th Street Causeway is often challenging, and that also brought up the issue regarding the bypass road. As we all know, the county is building a new expanded convention center and a new convention center hotel, and we believe it's going to generate a lot more traffic. The county has promised that before they open the hotel, they will have completed a bypass road that would go from State Road 84 through the port and empty out at Eisenhower Boulevard. Their analyses has shown us that 75% of all traffic that comes from the south ultimately winds up at that intersection of Eisenhower and 17th Street. So this is a way to bypass 17th Street, so it frees up that street for local traffic. So we're looking forward to that road being completed, and I believe part of the deal is that the hotel will not be opened until such time as that road is finished. So that's another promise that we can look forward to. But the big question that most people came there for was what's going to happen with the exit plans for people who live in Harbor Inlet once the bridge is closed on South Ocean Drive, right? Yeah, South Ocean Drive.
Yes, that's correct.
And I believe construction started yesterday, so I haven't heard any nightmare stories yet, but the idea is to try to maintain a single outlet on right near the gas station, the Safeway gas station, and hopefully that will be sufficient in order to accommodate the traffic going in and out of the neighborhood. If not, then we may have to open a side street, Marietta Drive. But as you can imagine, everybody who lives on Marietta Drive showed up and said, don't do it. So the room, all the pro opening up was on this side of the room, and the anti-opening up was on this side of the room. It kind of generated some chuckles from everybody because it was like it was like competing families. But in the end, everyone came to the realization that if worse comes to worse, we're going to have to open up that road. And I hesitate to have to do it, but let's hope that we can be more aware of the necessity of safety and try to accommodate the neighborhood as best as possible in order to ensure that people have access to getting out of that area. So that also brought up some other issues regarding development. What's happening at Pier 66? Is that development going to spill onto the south side of the bridge? So far, the city has received, to my knowledge, has received no plans for the south side of that bridge. So, and I feel that before we move forward, there should be a lot of community input as to ideas as to what the community would like to see there before the developer moves forward with any site plan. And then people wanted to know about the Bahia Mar. And we explained to the folks how we downsized the Bahia Mar, how we were able to reduce the size of the residential portion as well as the commercial. So I think it dispelled a lot of misinformation that's out there, and hopefully overall that the town hall meeting was a success in order for people to hear from the horse's mouths exactly what is going on, what has happened, and what we can look forward to in the future. And thank you, Commissioner, for being there for moral safety.
Moral support.
Yes. So moving forward, on April 17th, I'll be speaking at the Rotary Club of Fort Lauderdale at noon at the Global Events Center. And that same day, the MPO is having an art and stroll event starting at 5 p.m. on East Las Olas Boulevard. This is an annual thing, I believe. I've attended that before. Basically, you go from office space to office space looking at different artists' artwork. Let's see. I believe Commissioner Glassman spoke about the the Panther Iceplex that's now open to the public. It was a great day. Hundreds of people were there. Obviously, there's pent-up demand for those that truly enjoy ice sports. So we're very happy that occurred. And on April 23rd, the Panthers Move with the Mayor initiative is going to happen at 4 p.m. That same day, there'll be as part of the Bloomberg Harvard program that I'm a part of and part of our city staff, there's going to be a public co-creation session at the YMCA. Everyone's invited to attend. It's at 6 p.m. Again, that's April 23rd. Really looking forward to the next day of April 24th when we do the announcement for the movie studio. It's going to be quite an investment by those who really see this as a wonderful opportunity for the motion picture industry, not only the motion picture industry as we know it, but also the high-tech aspect of it. It's going to be a tech center for developing new forms of entertainment. And we're really looking forward to it because it's going to be the only one of its kind in the country, we've been told. And there's so many opportunities for young kids and those who are looking to enhance their professional career to be a part of this. And we're really going to push forward in making sure that our community gets to benefit from it. Let's see, April 27th, Fort Lauderdale Cares Day. It's a great volunteer opportunity for everyone throughout the city to participate in that. So please speak with your local commissioner on how you can, what's happening in your district so that we can all participate in that volunteer effort. April 27th is the United Way Mayor's Gala. That's at the Hard Rock Casino. Everyone's invited to attend. Looking forward to that. It's a great opportunity to meet with mayors and commissioners and city councilors from throughout the city, from throughout the county, that we work with and share mutual goals. And then on May 4th, the Broward League of Cities is having their annual gala at the Margaritaville Hotel down in Hollywood. Looking forward to that. It's always a great time. So let me see. Let me see. Was there anything else? I think that was it. I think that's it. Anyone have any additions or modifications to their presentations? Okay. Greg, do you have anything you'd like to add?
Sure. So just wanted to add that to that meeting at the YMCA, there are going to be refreshments served, and please RSVP. We want to make sure we have, a great setting for those that are coming. And also, first meeting in May, we invite everyone to come because we're also going to do a presentation with the YMCA about their development that will take place at Holiday Park. We're going to have a sneak peek preview. We want to get some public participation. And also, we're going to unveil a new health and wellness level amenity. It's going to be very exciting.
Where is this? At Holiday Park?
At Holiday Park.
Okay.
Right in the core.
Really?
I wanted to just say, as I'm leaving here, I'm leaving a well-rounded group of competent leaders, all right? I want everyone in the community to know that it's not just me that makes things happen. There are a multitude layers and levels of supervisors and directors and assistant city managers that collaborate together. When we made this logo or slogan of We Are FTL, that's what we wanted to encompass. We wanted to encompass collaboration, innovation, and customer service. And I'm going to tell you that, all the directors here are on board with that. So I have great confidence that they will make sure they're going to lead the charge. I also want to thank Commissioner Sturman for recognizing the emergency response, because I'm going to tell you that while I was out driving with Chief Golan, there were a lot of people saying you're overreacting. But I just knew that there was something wrong. And, that's one of the reasons why I selected Chief Golan, for being our fire chief, because we had various activations in the past, and he was calm and collective. I want to say that that's one of the reasons why I selected Chief Schultz, too, because he pays attention to detail, and his disposition for follow-ups is always excellent. So, you have great people that are going to make sure that emergency management is top notch. And I'm telling you that because I was part of USAR, Urban Search and Rescue. I was part of the Haiti response team back in 2010. And, what you saw there was my experience rolling out from not even just this city manager job, but when I was in Hallandale, I did 2 hurricane activations. So, it was putting everyone together, making sure that they were focused on the mission, which is, prevention of life loss and also preservation of physical assets and making sure that we had a good recovery. And they did a great job.
Well, not to interrupt you, but whatever you had done in the past certainly benefited the city, and I'll tell you when. That rain event that we had last year, even before we recognized it was going to be as bad as it turned out to be, you had already opened up the emergency operations office. And that night, you had everyone in place, ready to respond. And I have to tell you that from that day forward, working with the state, working with the CFO, Jimmy Petronis, who came down here with the head of the insurance commissioner, and then trying to work with FEMA, going to Washington together, getting that money here. You were on top of it, way ahead of anybody else that I can't imagine how it would have worked out if we did not have you. So while not everybody was made whole, and while it was truly a devastating event, moving forward with Fortify Lauderdale, that effort, which had already been underway before the rainstorm even hit us, is a true testament to your understanding of the need for infrastructure improvement and enhancement and making sure that our neighborhoods are protected. So that night, I can tell you, was difficult for a lot of people. Thank God no one died. And we did recognize those young kids who went to the rescue of especially some seniors in their neighborhood who were sitting in neck-deep water. My hat's off to you, Greg. We're going to truly, truly miss you because, it's very rare that we find somebody who's so proactive and so, responsive as you had been that evening.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And so I want to just leave you with thank you so much, Mr. Mayor, because I think that if we would have just followed up with whatever certain agencies would tell us, we would have not gotten $32 million in the pockets of individuals. And that was very important for the recovery of this community. So yeah, those are things that this team knows. They know how to do it. They have very good contacts with FEMA, cell phones, and they're ready to provide that response if needed. I want to leave you all with this, the commission, that as you select your next interim, I want to ask if you could have patience with them, if you could make sure that they're treated kindly, that, there's a lot of expectations out there that, we can quickly respond to things, but everything follows a process for accountability. I want to say that some of the challenges that will be a key priority for this city to be successful is making sure that the budget is balanced. That's so important. Please do not add any additional programs. Look at what you have, perhaps even scale down in anything that you can, because it's important to realize that right now there's a lot of individuals going through a lot of financial and constraints, and so that makes sure that the community is always made whole. The other thing is homeless strategy, making sure we have a thorough, comprehensive homeless strategy. We have resources, we have programs. I think it's important to take a look, and that's what staff is doing. Anthony Fajardo has gone out to San Diego, Washington, come back, and he's looking forward to putting all that together. So I hope to see that realized too. And ensuring that projects have momentum. There are a lot of projects that sometimes get stuck through different processes. It's important to make sure that these projects come to fruition, because as those projects come to fruition, there goes property evaluation, there goes a better revenue stream for better balancing and for meeting all the demands of costs and expenditures for the city. And all that is going to help support the business community. Just want to say that I am truly grateful and honored for being able to serve in this capacity. I do what I love and love what I do, and I really appreciate those that voted me in because they helped me realize my teenage dream of being a public administrator. Thank you.
Thank you. I have a list of the April retirements. You're not on here. Oh, I guess we're waiting till next month. I just want to announce the 4 retirements for April. Paul Sparks, a firefighter, has been with us for 24 years. He's retiring. Steve Shaw, as Commissioner Beasley Pittman announced, he is also retiring after 24 years, almost 25. James Romeo, Parks and Rec, lead facilities worker after 25 years. He's retiring. And Christopher Askervold, a fire captain, also retiring after 30 years. Wow, congratulations, and thank you for your service to our city and to our community. Doesn't leave you with much there, Chief Golan. All right, meeting concluded. Thank you. See you at 6.